Chapter 294. Deadline of Death Inside the Third Medicine Valley. Guan and Xian stood in a garden area, with Guan instructing what to plant next. Xian listened attentively. Just then, the voice of the life-seizing Immortal suddenly echoed. He was actually planning to exterminate one region of heaven and earth every day. Xian had no time to think further when a terrifying sword intent descended, causing a drastic change in her complexion. The previously bustling Medicine Valley fell silent in an instant. Xian felt as if she were being crushed by a mountain, almost unable to breathe, which turned her complexion even paler. Suddenly, a hand landed on her shoulder, making her heart tremble. Before she could think further, the pressure on her body abruptly vanished. She turned her head instinctively and, seeing it was her master's hand, she breathed a sigh of relief. "Master, could it be that they've chosen the continent we're on?" Xian asked cautiously. Even though she was carefree on normal days, she feared death when faced with it. The words of the life-seizing Immortal, coupled with the sudden sword intent, made it clear that the first chosen continent was the one they were on. Guan took a deep breath and feigned composure. "Unclear, let's go back inside first. Within the confines of the Supreme Sect, such calamities are not our concern. Whether we live or die, we leave it to fate." Xian wanted to speak again, but Guan pulled her away. Another voice rang out in Medicine Valley, "Amit Ba." With Shenzhen's words, everyone in Medicine Valley felt relieved, and disciples ran towards the pavilions. Rumble. The earth trembled as the Supreme Sect activated its great protective formation. Golden barriers rose up from all directions. By the time Guan and his companion reached the pavilion, Ji Xiaoyu had already stepped outside. She gazed at the sky, the red Dao patterns on her forehead starting to flicker with tiny flames. Seeing this, Guan quickly approached her and asked, "You weren't frightened just now, were you?" Ji Xiaoyu's Dao patterns returned to normal as Guan blocked her view. Her expression calmed down and she nodded. "No, it seems the life-seizing Immortal is targeting the continent. It's probably related to the actions of Sword Venerable Fudao years ago." Guan comforted her. "Don't overthink it. If the enemy is acting this way, it means Sword Venerable Fudao is still around. Take care of the valley for me, I need to make a trip to Mystic Valley." With that, Guan quickly headed towards the transmission array platform. Ji Xiaoyu looked at his receding figure, wanting to say something, but she couldn't find the words. Somehow this scene felt familiar, as if she had seen it somewhere. Guan swiftly arrived in Mystic Valley and saw Lu Jiujia already calling disciples to take cover. He nodded to himself in approval. Taking advantage of the moment when no one was paying attention, he quickly walked into the woods pretending to inspect medicinal herbs. "Are you courting death? Caring about your flowers and plants at a time like this? You must be insane." The voice of Jianghu came from behind, and Guan turned to look, seeing her with an ugly expression walking towards him. She looked at Guan and said with resentment, "Now I can't even escape if I want to. Let's wait for death together." She could feel the sword intent approaching rapidly. Even if she tried to escape now, she was afraid it would be too late to reach the Nine Nether Road. Guan, squatting on the ground, couldn't help but punch the grass, picking up a handful of fallen leaves before standing up, his face filled with unwillingness. Jianghu looked at his expression and suddenly laughed, teasing, "What's wrong? Scared?" Guan tossed the leaves in his hand forward as if venting his anger. He then turned to look at Jianghu and said, "I'm not afraid. I just find this disdain for life detestable." Jianghu fell silent, then said, "Come with me to the 8 scenic caves." Guan nodded and followed her up the mountain. Jianghu didn't notice the leaves that Guan had thrown floated up again, each leaf trembling. Only after they entered the entrance of the 8 scenic caves did the leaves disappear into the forest. In front of the soul-calming pagoda, tens of thousands of great cold demon sect cultivators floated in the air, their eyes focused on Qingxin Jinren, who was holding a sword. Such exquisite sword intent, Elder Brother Kingxin's supreme mysterious sword Dao has reached the transformation realm. Indeed powerful, enough to sweep across the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. I heard that Elder Brother Bai Hong was defeated by Elder Brother Qingxin 1,000 years ago. The founder of the Supreme Mysterious Sword Dao, the Supreme Mysterious Ancestor, went to the Holy Land long ago. In 10,000 years, the only one who has reached such a level with the Supreme Mysterious Sword Dao is Elder Qingxin. This sword strike, everyone should watch carefully, it is a rare sight. The great cultivators of the Great Cold Demon sect discussed animatedly, mostly in a light-hearted tone. Even though they already knew about the fall of Bai Hong, they were not panicked. They had the numerical advantage this time, and with 4 carefree primordial immortals as their support, how could they possibly die? Qingxin Jinren positioned his treasure sword in front of him, the blade perfectly aligning with his eyes. Suddenly he opened his eyes, which astonishingly turned green. As soon as he opened his eyes, his sword intent fully erupted, silencing the surrounding noise. All eyes fell on Qingxin Jinren, and with a stern look, he immediately slashed with his sword. Sword light gleamed, chilling the heaven and sea, and even the rolling thunderclouds above were illuminated. The smaller the range of the formation, the stronger its protection. I want to see if we can escape this disaster. Let's take a gamble. If it doesn't work, we're dead anyway, so worrying then would be pointless, Jiang Qiong casually answered, making Guan want to cry and laugh at the same time. Meanwhile, the entire continent was in a state of tension. Even though the sword intent had vanished, the tightly wound nerves of all beings on the continent could not immediately relax. Many beings began to flee, and Guan even felt many presences flying out of the supreme sect, all in groups, which were noble families in flight. Inside the third medicine valley, Ji Hantian landed swiftly and found Ji Xiaoyu. The two conversed inside the house. "I'm not leaving," Ji Xiaoyu stated, expressionless. Upon hearing this, Ji Hantian became angry, but for some reason looking at Ji Xiaoyu, he thought of a fellow descendant with the same name and surname. Although they looked different, their expressions at this moment made them seem like the same person. Ji Hantian's anger dissipated somewhat, and he said solemnly, "Regardless of whether the life-seizing immortal has chosen this continent, there will only be more dangers ahead. The Ji family must preserve its lineage. Why do you insist on staying?" Ji Xiaoyu looked at him. "Someone must stay. I can give my spot to someone else. Besides, where can we flee to?" Ji Hantian felt suffocated with frustration. Years ago he had tried to forcibly keep another Ji Xiaoyu without success. Now he wanted this Ji Xiaoyu to leave, but it was still not possible. He couldn't understand why these descendants always opposed him. He was always looking out for their best interest. "There's no time left. You'd better go and persuade the other clan members," Ji Xiaoyu reminded. Ji Hantian glared at her and left immediately. Ji Xiaoyu was not his direct descendant, so he could only advise without the right to forcibly take her away. Once Ji Hantian had departed, Ji Xiaoyu thought for a moment and then walked out of her house. She went outside the courtyard, looking up at the sky, only to see numerous cultivators flying over Medicine Valley. It was unclear whether they were fleeing or preparing for battle. "The Great Cold Demon Sect," Ji Xiaoyu murmured to herself, the Tao patterns between her eyebrows once more emitting thin flames. Time passed amidst the panic of beings below. The people were trapped in agony and anxiety. Until an ancient hour later the atmosphere began to ease. Elder Lu looked at Shin Shinzi and asked, "Senior, were we not chosen?" The other disciples looked at Shin Shinzi as well. Shin Zinzi's background was very mysterious, but the higher-ups of the Supreme Sect held him in high regard. Such an existence would certainly see further than they could. Shin Shinzi frowned deeply, looking towards the sky, and said, "Indeed, we were not chosen." At his words, all the disciples rejoiced. Chapter 295. The Great Cold Demon Sect Attacks. Upon hearing Shin Zinzi's words, the disciples of Medicine Valley all cheered, yet Shin Shinzi hesitated as if he wanted to say more. He intended to say one thing, that it seemed no continent had been chosen. To obliterate a continent, what immense power it must require, he, being from the 9th layer of the wandering immortal realm, could surely sense it. However, he could not openly mention this for fear that these mortals would be terrified. Even if they knew what would happen next, what could they do? Better to enjoy this surprise and live the remaining days as carefree as possible. Time continued to pass. With the moon setting and the sun rising, only when the next day's sunlight swept across the great heaven and earth did the creatures of the continent finally breathe a sigh of relief, for the life-seizing immortal had said that each day one continent would be chosen, and they had survived the first day. The situation at the Supreme Sect also settled down. Although many noble families began to retreat, the core foundation remained unshaken. When Guan returned to the third Medicine Valley, normalcy had returned to Medicine Valley. After Xiaochuan left and an XN began to manage Medicine Valley, and because of her gentle nature, most disciples liked her, so there had been no issues under her management. Shinjin found him soon after he returned. "Do you want a place to hide?" Shinjin asked with a smug smile, her eyes gleaming behind her veil. While walking toward a distant garden, Guan casually asked, "How would we hide?" Following his steps, Shinjin explained, "I can hide you inside a painting or scroll and then keep it hidden. Wouldn't that be a refuge?" People are trying to obliterate continents. Where could you hide? Underground, of course. He said he would obliterate continents. Sure, he meant to demolish the mortals and shatter the land, not obliterate the earth completely. That makes sense. Are you a genius by any chance? Guwen suddenly realized, looking at Shenzhen with amazed eyes. A twitch appeared at the corner of Shenzhen's veiled mouth, clearly perceiving the sarcasm in Guwen's tone. Guwen continued, "Don't overthink it. I always feel that yesterday our continent was not excluded. That mysterious pressure was no lie. Also, haven't you noticed how calm today has been?" Upon hearing this, Shenzhen narrowed her eyes. "Are you suggesting that the great cold demon sect's offensive was thwarted?" "Very likely. After all, I trust that the heavens are just. There must be great cultivators out there with a heart for the mortals. A heretical path like the great cold demon sect cannot last forever," Guwen declared with conviction, his face full of determination. Shenzhen suddenly found it hard to judge him. Calling him foolish wouldn't explain his current stature, and calling him naive wouldn't explain how he could write something as unique as Journey to the West. "You say the heavens are just. Tell me, do you believe that real immortals exist beyond those with great cultivation levels?" Shenzhen suddenly asked, curious. She had always believed that investiture of the gods and Journey to the West were not fabricated but were inspired by something Guwen had seen, elaborated with decorative imagination and fantasy. Perhaps, as Guwen claimed, an immortal guided him in his dreams. Guwen and Shenzhen chatted casually, a microcosm of the wider world, where everywhere people discussed the life-seizing immortal. Without his demise the catastrophe would not end. 2 days later, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord and Stealing the 5 Elements returned to the Third Medicine Valley, almost as if they had planned it. Sitting before a chessboard they exchanged a look, their eyes heavy with gravity. "Did you feel it too?" Stealing the 5 Elements asked. The Divine Lord made his move, saying, "A net of heaven and earth, no escape." Stealing the 5 Elements then played his piece. "How come you have no escape?" "I'm the one who's bound by fate." Continuing to glance towards a distant pavilion. Ji Xiaoyu was his hope. The Divine Lord fell silent, sighing deeply. Stealing the 5 Elements looked at him, curiously asking, "Speaking of which, I've always wondered, what exactly are you looking for?" The Divine Lord didn't respond, leaving Stealing the 5 Elements contemplative, a subtle look crossing his face. In the Divine Exotic Realm. By the sea. The Master of Divine Exotic Realm stood before the Divine Exotic Life Tablet, surrounded by 7 Divine Exotic Ghost Kings, all of them looking up into the sky. Beneath the blood-red sky hung a swirling horsetail whisk. Compared to the calm demeanor of the Master of Divine Exotic Realm, the other Divine Exotic Ghost Kings looked uneasy, knowing whom they faced. "Master of Divine Exotic Realm, prepare to join us in an expedition." A cold voice resounded, echoing through the entire great heaven and earth. In a distant cave, Jianghu also heard this voice and inadvertently opened his eyes, his brow furrowed in worry for the Master of Divine Exotic Realm. With an expressionless face, the Master of Divine Exotic Realm asked, "An expedition to where?" "To avenge Divine Exotic Impermanence." The cold voice spoke again, causing the faces of the Divine Exotic Ghost Kings and the Realm Master to shift. The great cold demon sect and that entity were indeed going to clash. This battle might determine the fate of this mortal world region. In the Star Sea congregations, a small heaven and earth. And Hao stood before the palace gates, observing disciples constantly entering and exiting the floating islands, his brows deeply furrowed. A figure appeared beside him, his master, Sage Fuchen. And Hao quickly said, "Master, it's good you're here, I need to speak with you. Let's talk while on the way. Prepare for retreat, we must withdraw today." Sage Fuchen said in a grave tone. "Why?" And Hao couldn't help but ask. "The great cold demon sect is making a major descent, targeting the continent where the sword Venerable Fudao resides. They appear to be intent on sieging your master," Sage Fuchen explained. On hearing this, and Hao became anxious. Before he could reply, Sage Fuchen continued, "Your cultivation level won't assist your master. It's best to leave early. Your master, although strong, can't withstand the full assault of the great cold demon sect, otherwise he wouldn't be on the defensive." And Hao gritted his teeth, "My concern isn't for my master. I must go back." An Exin was still within the supreme sect. How could he abandon her? He immediately leaped up, intending to forcefully break out of the Star Sea congregation's realm. Suddenly, long hair wrapped around him, surprisingly Sage Fuchen's horsetail whisk. "Master!" And Hao cried out in anguish, startling the other disciples. Sage Fuchin held the horsetail whisk, chanting incantations. The whisk's hairs quickly extended, gagging in how. I'm sorry, disciple. Sage Fuchin's eyes became resolute. This scene left the other disciples silent. Without discussion, they all understood and felt the heaviness in their hearts, likewise having people they couldn't leave behind. The Star Sea congregations were about to flee. In another realm, Liya, leveraging divine exotic city, forcefully broke free, unobstructed by anyone. He quickly flew out over the Star Sea, heading towards the horizon. Disciple, think carefully, once you go there is no turning back. An old voice sounded, and as Liya turned his head, he didn't see his master's figure. He did not answer but instructed the divine exotic immortal spirit on his shoulder to move forward. The divine exotic immortal spirit howled, and the divine exotic city immediately displayed extraordinary speed, streaking towards the horizon. After flying for a while and seeing no one pursued, Liya relaxed, his gaze hardened. Junior brother Gu, wait for me. And the old ancestor, I wonder if you're still thinking of me. Liya thought silently, his face heavy. Initially, his emotions weren't profoundly impacted, fueled only by fury as Jianghu became a divine exotic resentful ghost. However, the moment the Star Sea congregations announced their departure, he panicked. The Star Sea congregations were a major force at sea. If there was any chance of victory, they wouldn't be abandoning their domain. Hearing that the great cold demon sect aimed to target the sword Venerable Fudao, he couldn't contain himself. The sword Venerable Fudao was his primordial ancestor. He was less worried about him as the ancestor could escape if he couldn't fight, but he feared for the others who might not escape. He had to be quick. Liya clenched his teeth, fearing the continent had already fallen. The divine exotic immortal spirit, however, was not panicked, leaping joyfully in the air, which both irritated and envied Liya. This creature seemed to fear nothing, its confidence was unknown. Time rapidly passed. 2 ancient hours later. Liya, sitting atop the tower meditating, suddenly sensed something, opening his eyes to find the divine exotic city enveloped in darkness. Instinctively he looked up, then his eyes widened in disbelief. How possible? Liya murmured to himself, his voice trembling, his eyes full of despair. In the third Medicine Valley. At the garden fence, Guan was stretching his muscles. Passing by, Yu Yingying curiously asked, "What are you doing? Isn't there exercise in the morning?" Guan replied, "Just felt like moving." "Is that not allowed?" What followed was sure to be a great battle. It must be said, the great cold demon sect was indeed frightening. The dense auras attacking from all directions were overwhelmingly oppressive, and once they arrived, if seen by the denizens of the continent, it would surely cause legs to tremble. Yu Yingying looked at him, unable to resist asking, "Everyone is worried about the calamity, why aren't you afraid?" "Because I'm not afraid, so I'm not frightened," Guan responded casually, his words leading Yu Yingying to glare, feeling the urge to punch him. She couldn't understand Guan at all. Out for experience he feared death, yet, with calamity impending he seemed not to fear it. Truly a baffling person. Yet, somehow, the more anxious she felt, the more she wanted to talk to Guan, perhaps it was his fearless demeanor. Guan guessed her thoughts and smiled, "Whether you worry or fear, it won't change anything, will it?" Yu Yingying opened her mouth, unsure how to respond. Guan drew his heavenly residence sword, suddenly unsheathing it. The sword's light gleamed in Yu Yingying's face, snapping her out of her trance. Looking at Guan holding the sword, Yu Yingying's earlier illusion re-emerged, his forehead marked with golden patterns, appearing extraordinary as if an immortal lord on earth. She had to admit, although Guan's cultivation level wasn't impressive, his appearance and bearing were truly out of this world, unlike Immortal. Guan raised his sword towards Yu Yingying, the blade's tip reflecting in her pupils, causing her to shiver. "If only this sword could slash away the fear in your hearts, how wonderful would that be?" Guan said wistfully. Yu Yingying was left in a daze. Chapter 296. The Strongest Sword. Sunlight shone on Guan, and Yu Yingying felt as if he were draped in a layer of rosy clouds, his whole being radiating with splendor. She actually believed that Guan was speaking the truth. Guan's gaze fell on her, and he raised an eyebrow asking, "What? Are you intimidated by my aura of righteousness?" Yu Yingying snapped back to reality and glared, "Who can't say things like that? If your sword is really that powerful, would you still be holed up here?" "Haha, what do you know? Hurry up and leave, don't disturb my cultivation." Guan smiled, then sheathed his sword smoothly, believing himself to look quite dashing. Sadly Yu Yingying was blind to it. Yu Yingying snorted and turned to leave. As she turned around, a smile appeared on her face. Talking with this silly boy had indeed had an effect. Her heart felt much better. At the same moment, under the tree, Shin Shinzi opened his eyes, his gaze profound. His hand clutching the prayer beads moved faster, clearly anxious. Next to him, Wu Xing and Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, who were playing chess, stood up. "Let's call this game a draw," declared Nine-Fingered Divine Lord without room for doubt. Wu Xing's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're almost wiped out by me and you dare call it a draw?" Nine-Fingered Divine Lord said nonchalantly with a straight face and unwavering confidence, "The outcome is uncertain until the end." Wu Xing shook his head with a smile but said nothing more, disappearing into thin air. Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's gaze swept over Medicine Valley, landing on the distant figure of Guan. "What a pity, I haven't won a single game against you yet." Nine-Fingered Divine Lord muttered to himself before he too disappeared on the spot. Guan, who was stretching his limbs, felt numerous cultivators and demons taking flight across the continent, rushing towards its edges. Before the cataclysm, some wished to flee while others wished to fight. Those wishing to fight were driven by courage, righteousness, or compulsion. But at this moment, they had all made their decision. The question was whether they could maintain that courage once they witnessed the true might of the great cold demon sect. Guan turned and walked toward the transmission array platform. Along the way, the number of disciples who greeted him diminished, everyone preoccupied with their thoughts. After reaching Mystic Valley, Guan made his way toward the outskirts of Medicine Valley. Entering the woods, he drew out the Heavenly Residence sword in one hand while unsheathing the Qinghong sword with the other. The Qinghong sword buzzed faintly as Guan used his own mana to sever its connection with the White Spirit sword. He could sense his junior sister's unease. "Do not fear, junior sister, it will soon pass," Guan murmured to himself, and as his words dropped, he was shrouded in a dark purple demonic chi that quickly engulfed his body, blazing furiously. His figure vanished into the depths of the forest, leaving no trace behind. At the edge of the continent, towering waves crashed against the shore. Above the mountains, great cultivators hovered in the air, with the vast landscape behind them and the endless ocean ahead. They hailed from different sects: Supreme Sect, Three Pure Ones Mountain, Sangtian Sect, Daotian Sect, Sword Sect, Candle Sky Peak, Flame Sect, Juhua Sect, and more. Sects across the world continuously dispatched cultivators to different edges of the continent. They were just one group gathering rapidly beyond 100, with more cultivators on their way. As their numbers grew, a newfound confidence began to swell inside them. Qiao Dai, a cultivator from Supreme Sect with a cultivation level of the 9th layer of the Mahayana realm, became the leader, calming the surrounding cultivators and beginning to give battle instructions. Just then, an overwhelmingly terrifying pressure descended, prompting them to turn their heads in shock. In the next second, their faces paled, and even the ever-confident Qiao Dai gaped in despair. A vast black fog rolled in from the horizon like a wave of darkness, unstoppable and devouring the skies and earth. Before the black fog, islands and demon beasts appeared insignificantly small, like dust. Even flying beasts were engulfed by the fog from behind, their fates uncertain. Looking up, shadows of different figures hovered above the black fog, clothed distinctly, wielding different Dharma treasures. Some had glowing artifacts floating behind them, some rode fierce mounts, and others stood proudly atop sword chi with their hands behind their backs. Each one was shadowed by a towering phantom 1,000 feet high, appearing like demon gods, their silhouettes a mirror of themselves. At first glance, there were endless towering demon phantoms of 1,000 feet high that could not be counted, creating an overwhelming sense of oppression. At this moment, the continent cultivators were plunged into dead silence, everyone stunned as if struck by lightning, frozen in midair. Qiao Dai saw behind these 1,000-foot demon phantoms an even more terrifying presence. With legs walking forward, the phantoms unable to reach even the ankles of this mysterious existence. It was impossible to imagine the true size. Some tried to look sideways. Wherever the ocean spread, there stood demon phantoms, casting them into despair not only by the disparity in cultivation levels but also the sheer numerical difference between friends and foes. "How can we win?" someone said with a bitter laugh. No one responded, their courage faltered. Above the clouds, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord's face also transformed, his soul shaken by the impact. In his eyes, the demon phantoms perished, the black fog churned, and a sword light rapidly stretched, as if intent on splitting the very heavens and earth in two. In that moment, Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, who had lived for 170,000 years, witnessed the strongest sword strike of his life. "Who are you?" A voice full of both shock and rage erupted, the tone laced with fear. Chapter 297. Guan takes action. The sword light between heaven and earth began to fade, and the voice of the mysterious great cultivator from the great cold demon sect still echoed over the ocean, awakening the continent cultivators who had not seen Guan's figure just now. Only Nine-Fingered Divine Lord and stealing the 5 elements had seen clearly. But the immense sword intent made them think of one person. Sword Venerable Fudao. It's Sword Venerable Fudao. There's no mistake. It must be him. A mystic heart realm cultivator from the supreme sect exclaimed excitedly. He had also been to the heavenly repair platform and had experienced the sword intent within the words righteous path. Xiao Dai was equally excited, his eyes filled with frenzied anticipation. At this moment he remembered the scene when Sword Venerable Fudao descended upon the 7-star spirit realm. Stealing the 5 elements, who had narrowly escaped calamity, let out a sigh of relief, immediately retreated, and dared not approach the encroaching army of demonic shadows again. Guan stood atop the demon mist, sword in hand, with 1,000 Zhang demonic shadows dissipating in all directions, but even more demonic shadows approached, encircling him. He even saw some demonic shadows standing tens of thousands of Zhang tall and giant demons of indeterminate size. You have successfully seized 10,298 years of lifespan from Meng Qinglang, wandering immortal realm 7th floor. You have successfully seized 1,459 years of lifespan from Su Linxin, loose immortal realm 2nd floor. You have successfully seized 12,080 years of lifespan from True Man Wuyun, wandering immortal realm 6th floor. Notification after notification continuously popped up before Guan's eyes, but Guan didn't rush to make another move. Instead he looked around. One had to say the great cold demon sect's response was truly swift. As soon as he made a move, the remaining cultivators did not panic but instead immediately arranged a formation. Their formation was highly profound, not only capable of being formed in an extremely short amount of time but also containing powerful and mysterious forces. After the sword light vanished in less than 3 breaths' time, the world suddenly changed, and in an instant, Guan found himself in the cosmic star's cape, with rolling black mist under his feet, and still encircled by demonic shadows. The demonic shadows' feet held the Dharma treasures of the great cold demon sect cultivators. Accompanied by Guan's arrival in the cosmic star's cape, those titanic figures and even larger beings revealed their true forms. There were beasts as mighty as creation's god mountains, female cultivators who resembled fairies constantly scattering strange petals, and enormous birds with wingspans of 10,000 li circling overhead. The demon mist under Guan's feet churned violently, like surging waves. Who are you exactly? If you do not reveal your identity, do not blame us for showing no mercy. The previous voice sounded again. This time, its tone was incomparably cold. After the formation was set up, he seemed to have regained his confidence. Guan looked up and saw, within the layers of encirclement above, in absolute darkness, a pair of gigantic eyes lurked, as if an unimaginable existence outside the universe was peering at him, filled with an oppressive feeling. Sword Venerable Jesuin, Carefree Primordial Immortal Realm 8th Floor 780-450/830, 000/880, 000. An old monster who had lived for 780,000 years. However, killing this individual would only yield a little over 5,000 years of lifespan, which was too disappointing for Guan. As Sword Venerable Jesuin opened his eyes, 4 life-seizing immortals from the Carefree Primordial Immortal concurrently appeared. Fortunately, they had abundant lifespan, which improved Guan's mood. This is the Great Cold Demon Sect's Luo Tian Star's Immortal Capturing Formation. Once this formation is completed, no matter how great your divine skills, it will be impossible for you to escape. The voice of Sword Venerable Jesuin rang out, majestic to the extreme. The other 4 Carefree Primordial Immortals took out their supreme treasures and dispersed in all directions. Once they stopped, the entire cosmic star's cape rippled. Numerous rainbow lights emerged. These lights were not mere illusions, but were also condensing a mysterious force. Guan looked up at Sword Venerable Jesuin and asked, "Does the Great Cold Demon Sect have anyone stronger?" As these words were spoken, Sword Venerable Jesuin's gaze immediately changed, and all the cultivators of the Great Cold Demon Sect were scared, their eyes filled with fear when they looked at him. Someone stronger? How could this person be so arrogant? However, due to Guan's previous sword strike, no one dared to challenge him at this moment. All of them were on high alert. The face of life-seizing immortal turned extremely ugly, intuition telling him that the other party was not being arrogantly presumptuous. At this moment he was filled with dread. Luckily he wasn't rash but instead gathered the strength of the great cold demon sect. Otherwise he might have ended up with his soul scattered like his disciple Bai Hong. For a time, silence fell within the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation. It seems there's no one stronger? Truly disappointing. You're acting so recklessly, I thought you'd have more to back it up. Guan spoke again and suddenly he threw the heavenly resident's sword out. Boom. With this sword strike he swept above the black mist, annihilating the great cold demon sect cultivators one by one, and when the sword blade arrived in front of them, a layer of light burst forth around their bodies, but it was shattered as soon as it appeared, utterly failing to protect them. One sword pierced thousands of li, directly penetrating the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation and returning to reality. The continent cultivators hovering in the air only saw a sword light cutting through the vast expanse of black mist in front of them, making them even more nervous, unclear about the state of the battle within that black mist. After Guan made his strike, Sword Venerable Jesuin immediately gave the command, "Kill!" The great cold demon sect cultivators from all directions cast their spells. Various spells and divine skills formed a stream of rainbow colors charging towards Guan. Guan raised his hand to grab, then retracted it, revealing an individual in his palm. Origin Heaven Capturing Hand. This was the inherent divine skill of the primordial chaos supreme holy skill. Today was the first time Guan had used it. The person in his hand was Sword Venerable Jesuin, a white-robed elder. At this moment, Sword Venerable Jesuin's face was filled with fear and despair. Guan directly crushed him to dust. Then taking up the Qinghong sword he began the slaughter. Within the continent, an endless stream of cultivators rushed to the edge. When they saw the ocean they all changed color. The fearsome black mist seemed as if it could devour everything between heaven and earth, giving one the feeling of an impending disaster. Anyone who saw it would be afraid. The black mist surged violently as if countless demons were raging within. The morale on the side of the continent collapsed completely, with no one willing to fight. What they didn't know was that within the black mist, a large number of great cold demon sect cultivators were rushing in the same direction. The cultivators of the great cold demon sect had received the message. Someone had launched an assault on one side. All warriors were to immediately reinforce the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation. Rolling thunderclouds covered the sky, enveloping the entire continent. The sound of thunder was oppressively heavy. In the demon land, within a subsect of the supreme sect, Yi Lan stood on a pavilion looking up at the sky, tightly clutching the white spirit sword in her hand. She felt no anomaly from within the white spirit sword, but her heart would not be at peace. "I hope we can safely get through this calamity," Yi Lan muttered to herself, praying secretly. Although she saw no hope of longevity, she didn't want life to end like this. She had so many things unfinished, so many places unvisited, she had yet to fulfill her promise with her senior brother. How could she be resigned to death? Beneath the thunderclouds, nine-fingered divine lord and stealing the five elements stood shoulder to shoulder, unable to maintain composure, both unconsciously agape with faces full of shock. Not just them but the continent cultivators felt the same. Newcomers slowed their flight speed due to the sights before them. Within the vast black mist, countless enormous demonic shadows were snuffed out, leaping out, and countless cultivators hovered, all attacking in the same direction, which glinted with sword light. Even though separated by a great distance, unable to see the specifics of the battle, everyone could sense a powerful sword intent. This was not a battle of evenly matched strength, but a massacre with a great disparity in power. The number of cultivators from the great cold demon sect was vast, forming an ocean of people, and within their encirclement, Guan wielded dual swords casually, yet each sword could kill a large number of cultivators and demons. His strength deeply struck the great cold demon sect. "No good. We are not his match. Damn. He's doing it on purpose, deliberately not using divine skills and relying solely on sword chi to slaughter us. Even the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation has been broken by him. How could we have any chance of winning? Be careful. His sword is swinging this way. Retreat. Quick retreat." The world plunged into clamor and chaos. Each of Guan's sword strikes took not just life but also the overall morale of the great cold demon sect. Life-seizing Immortal dared not approach Guan, only able to use long-range divine skills. Giant hands resembling the clasping of fingers descended from the sky, pressing towards Guan, but were instantly shattered upon contact with him, having no effect. Guan strolled leisurely, walking above the black mist, each step followed by a sword swing as casually as if taking a walk, with no swordsmanship to speak of. Every time the great cold demon sect tried to form the Luo Tian Star's immortal capturing formation, it would be dispersed by Guan's sword chi. Guan looked at the notifications before him, struggling to contain the emotions in his heart. He was not killing for the sake of killing, he was enacting justice on behalf of the heavens. Suddenly, Guan stopped in his tracks, and as he did, all the great cold demon sect cultivators retreated, leaving 100 li radius around Guan where no one dared to tread. The cultivators of the great cold demon sect fell silent, all staring dead ahead at Guan. Life-seizing Immortal gritted his teeth and said, "The sect leader will arrive soon, don't panic everyone." His voice reached the ears of every great cold demon sect cultivator, yet these words did not boost their morale. "Don't panic?" Guan's voice rose, filled with sarcasm as if he had heard the world's biggest joke. Before life-seizing Immortal could speak, Guan suddenly vanished from the spot, frightening the cultivators of the great cold demon sect. Up there, a voice rose laden with despair. Countless cultivators and demons all looked up, their eyes wide with astonishment. What they saw was a colossal figure whose height could not be judged by the naked eye, standing proudly above the clouds, showing only its upper body, an almost illusory sight. Even the 10,000 Jianghu demonic shadows appeared tiny in front of this figure, who was none other than Guan himself. At that moment, all the cultivators of the great cold demon sect felt an overpowering suppression that rendered them immobile. Some of the highly cultivated cultivators of the demon sect unconsciously looked down, only to see the billowing black mist below give rise to a land ablaze with dark purple flames, rushing towards them. Life-seizing Immortal lowered his gaze and his complexion drastically changed. What was that? A land on fire? No, it was unmistakably a hand. A hand large enough to grasp all of them. In the distance, 9-fingered divine lord, stealing the 5 elements, and the continent cultivators were all dumbfounded. At the edge of the ocean, a city was rapidly approaching, and it was none other than divine exotic city. Liya, standing atop a tower in the city, had his eyes wide open, trembling all over, as he watched an immensely huge hand rise from within the infinite expanse of black mist. Even with his eyesight he couldn't take in the entire hand. He had never imagined such a large hand could exist in this world. If there were hands of heaven and earth, surely it would be this one. Chapter 298. Breaking through a lifespan of 100 million years. I'm not dreaming, am I? Liya muttered to himself, questioning the divine exotic immortal spirit perched on his shoulder. The divine exotic immortal spirit also widened its eyes in shock, its mouth agape. From their perspective, the huge hand at the horizon of the sea seemed as large as the ocean itself. If not for the curved fingers, they could hardly tell it was a hand. It felt like it could grab an entire continent with ease. Liya recognized the demonic chi emanating from the gigantic hand as somewhat familiar. Wait, wasn't this the hand of the primordial ancestor? At that thought, a surge of blood rushed through Liya's body uncontrollably, exciting him to the extreme. At the same time, the entire continent's populace could see Guan's figure, whose massive presence shook mountains and clouds on his path, a sight that overturned their understanding and imagination. In the third Medicine Valley, thousands of disciples watched with their mouths agape. Jianghu also stepped out of his house, completely dumbfounded when he saw Guan's towering figure. It was as if they were beholding the descent of a deity. What is that? It's Sword Venerable Fudao. It's the silhouette of Sword Venerable Fudao. Really? How can it be so large? Is it not an illusion? Many texts record that Sword Venerable Fudao perceives others using the demon shadow divine skill. I knew Sword Venerable Fudao wouldn't abandon us. A roar of cheers erupted across the continent. Though the demon shadow divine skill was terrifying, the thought of it representing Sword Venerable Fudao uplifted their spirits rather than causing fear. Since the fame of Sword Venerable Fudao, which righteous deed hadn't he done, and which person he killed wasn't among the evil? If it were a normal competition among sects, Sword Venerable Fudao wouldn't have intervened, otherwise Supreme Sect would have long become the foremost under heaven. Because of this, other sects respected Sword Venerable Fudao, acknowledging Supreme Sect's luck. In confrontations with Supreme Sect, they were wary of Sword Venerable Fudao, but they weren't afraid he'd harm them as long as they didn't commit heinous acts. Since Sword Venerable Fudao appeared, many disciples had perished during Supreme Sect's expansion. Yet Sword Venerable Fudao hadn't sought vengeance. The sects and clans that decided to stay were bustling with excitement, as if the spring festival had come early. While the continent was invigorated, the cultivators of the Great Cold Demon sect fell into despair. They watched as Guian's fingers slowly rose, appearing like ancient colossal peaks ascending, creating an overwhelmingly impactful scene. Even Immortal Path Realm cultivators watched in awe. The life-seizing Immortal desperately mobilized his mana, but he couldn't move an inch, feeling as insignificant as an ant. How many years had it been? Ever since he entered the Nirvana realm, not to mention the carefree primordial immortal realm, he hadn't been so embarrassed. The other 3 carefree primordial immortals were in the same state, utterly immobile despite their full efforts, despair beyond common understanding. If they were so affected, not to mention cultivators of other realms, despair shrouded every heart. This hand had captured millions of the Great Cold Demon sect's cultivators and demons. Those arriving cultivators from the Great Cold Demon sect, upon seeing this gigantic hand, fled in panic, throwing aside all their rules and consequences. Guan looked down at the Great Cold Demon sect cultivators and the demons they brought within his palm. He also hesitated. Killing too many would weigh on his conscience and he worried it might bring greater troubles. But remembering the countless lives Bai Hong had slaughtered, his heart hardened. Such a wicked sect, if it's to be extinguished, so be it. If even this act brought divine retribution, then Guan would question what heaven really stood for. Once Guan's thoughts cleared, he suddenly clenched his hand. His palm was so huge that a simple clench stirred up a terrifying storm, unleashing waves sweeping toward the horizon. The fierce winds assaulted Divine Exotic City, forcing it to activate its city protection array immediately. Leah watched as the protective barrier around Divine Exotic City violently distorted. He couldn't concern himself with the safety of the city as he looked into the distance, trembling. The sight of that mighty clenched fist was simply too magnificent. He even doubted whether immortal cultivation could really reach such a mighty level. He wondered whether the primordial ancestor was born an immortal, a true immortal, not merely a mortal who had cultivated into one. As Guan clenched, the heaven and earth fell silent. The terrifying oppression that had engulfed the continent and the surrounding seas was gone. Despite the rolling thunderclouds above, the masses felt as though they had emerged from the clouds into clear skies. You successfully seized 1,228 years of lifespan from Bai Lai, Loose Immortal Realm, 7th layer. You successfully seized 493 years of lifespan from Qin Sushin, Nirvana Realm, 9th layer. You successfully seized 58 years of lifespan from the Sei Crossing Old Immortal, Nirvana Realm, 8th layer. You successfully seized 2,780 years of lifespan from Yunhai Tianjun, Wandering Immortal Realm, 5th layer. Alerts continuously popped up before Guan's eyes, and then he vanished, but his remaining image in the sky left the beings in awe. The black fog enveloping the sea swiftly dissipated, signifying the end of a massive calamity. Leah recovered his senses and quickly urged the divine exotic immortal spirit to head towards the mainland. Jiang Qiong had dug a hole and placed a coffin inside. What was this, planning to bury himself? Jiang Qiong pointed at the coffin. Lie down here with me, it might help us avoid disaster. Guan pretended to be reluctant. Is this really necessary? Jiang Qiong glared, swiftly came forward, and pushed him. If he hadn't suppressed his Taoist gang primal energy, Jiang Qiong might have been obliterated. Guan had no choice but to lie down in the coffin. Jiang Qiong jumped in after him, forcibly pressing him down. Lying in the coffin, she swung her right hand, and the lid immediately covered them, plunging their vision into darkness. From the outside, the coffin began sinking into the earth, soon vanishing from sight. Confined in the cramped space of the coffin, Guan and Jiang Qiong squeezed together. In that moment, Guan's heart calmed. Massacring so many, even if all evil, his heart couldn't stay tranquil easily. Excessive killing bred malevolent energy, even a thrilling emotion of breaking free from moral shackles. He needed time to adjust. Now, lying in this darkness, his mood inexplicably steadied. Despite being in the dark, Guan could still see his lifespan alerts. Jiang Qiong's body began to squirm. Her arm was soft, she seemed to feel too squeezed, constantly pressing against Guan. Guan couldn't help asking, if the calamity doesn't strike, how long must we hide here before we can leave? Being squeezed in the coffin with Jiang Qiong, he actually found it quite amusing, a completely novel experience for him. Hide for a few decades, at least until we get past the life-seizing Immortal's 100-year mark. That long? No, I need to go back, there are disciples in the valley, I can't abandon them. Humph, don't even think about it. Now that you've already lain down, don't think about leaving. As her words fell, Guan felt his left hand grasped by hers. Her hand was cold like a corpse's. Guan tried to break free, but she held on tightly. Only after all the lifespan alerts had settled did Guan come back to his senses. He hadn't checked his lifespan yet, planning to later enjoy the moment of unveiling his lifespan. He spoke up, "It's a bit uncomfortable squeezing like this, don't you think? Squeezing like this for decades, I'm afraid I might die." Jiang Qiong didn't respond but began to shift her body. Guan stiffened instantly. Jiang Qiong actually lay on top of him, face to face. In the darkness, Guan distinctly felt her breath was a bit agitated, though faint, not escaping his senses. Suddenly Jiang Qiong's face pressed against Guan's chest, and he could feel one of her legs rubbing against his shin. "This is bad. Things have gone too far." Guan fake coughed. "Why are you so heavy?" Jiang Qiong's breathing hitched, then Guan felt a hand land on his waist, fingers pinching his flesh. Chapter 299, Terrifying Lifespan. "Kid, do you truly not know how to speak, or are you purposely trying to irritate me?" In the darkness, Jiang Qiong's voice resounded, somewhat grinding her teeth in frustration, but her hand did not forcefully pinch Guan, it was merely a warning. Guan, of course, had intentionally disrupted the atmosphere. He feigned a cough and began asking Jiang Qiong what she would like to do after the disaster was over. Jiang Qiong fell into silence, her limbs ceasing to move as she started to contemplate the question seriously. In truth, she had always been unclear about what she really wanted to do. She had done many things to become stronger, but when the apocalyptic disaster arrived, she felt that her actions were meaningless. Guan did not disturb her, allowing her to think it over. However, the moment the silence settled, his mind began to wander. Pinned down by Jiang Qiong, Guan could feel every part of her body pressing against him. How could he remain calm? At that moment, the plots of Green Hero Travelogue, Supreme Secret Records, Black Heroes Travelogue, and many others flashed through his mind. Suddenly he felt Jiang Qiong tremble slightly. He hurriedly shifted his thoughts to ponder what exactly lifespan samsara was. As his thoughts shifted, Jiang Qiong calmed down. She spoke up, "If we truly can survive this catastrophe, then I'll focus on developing the Juhua sect. I won't wander around anymore. I feel like all these years of running about haven't really counted for much." "That's good," Guan replied, "to avoid any dangers." Jiang Qiong suddenly stretched out her hand, hugged Guan tightly and whispered softly, "The calamity of the ephemera sect left me without any relatives. You are now the only person I care about. Back when you first entered the 8 scenic caves, I was considering whether to kill you or not. Who would have thought that after so many years, you would become so important to me?" Hearing this, Guan stiffened slightly and replied helplessly, "Is it that serious? I haven't been all that good to you. On the contrary, you've taught me quite a few spells." Setting aside the matter of Sword Venerable Fu Dao supporting Jiang Qiong, Guan genuinely felt that his outward contributions to Jiang Qiong paled in comparison to what she had offered him. Many spells Jiang Qiong taught him he still used to this day. She had also given him magic artifacts and heavenly treasures. "How can you say you haven't been good to me? You've managed the 8 scenic caves very well and you've never betrayed me. Every time I've come back you've taken good care of me. Affection isn't entirely about contributions. If you were stronger you would definitely treat me even better, I understand that. And I felt right from our first meeting that you had the ability to kill me. You hid it well, but I knew not only that you didn't kill me, but also that you were obedient to me." Listening to Jiang Qiong, Guan suddenly didn't know what to say. "Of course you rascal, you are good to everyone. Everyone in the valley praises you," Jiang Qiong suddenly snorted. Hearing this, Guan immediately said, "That's what makes me a scary talent, being good to everybody, making it hard to interpret my thoughts." "Yes, but you never ask others for returns, which means you genuinely care for those around you and aren't aiming for anything. Stop undermining yourself. I can feel whether you are genuine or not. Pretense cannot last long," Jiang Qiong said softly. Guan, seemingly startled, said, "You're not thinking of exchanging vows, are you? That won't work. My junior sister and I plan to get married in the last 100 years of our lives." Jiang Qiong laughed and said, "The last 100 years? What if one of you lives longer?" "Whoever lives longer, it's still the same path to go down. The pursuit of immortal cultivation isn't about enduring love, but about eternal life. You certainly see it clearly. Yes, so don't harbor any improper thoughts about me. Why can't I? At the Thousand Autumn Pavilion, it's common for one person to have multiple Taoist friends, and female cultivators can have many Taoist friends too as long as she is strong enough. Now I am stronger than you, and you can't escape my grasp unless one day your cultivation surpasses mine. Jiang said proudly, her hand catching Guan's face as she spoke. She suddenly began her offensive. You demon cultivator, faking refuge from the calamity and actually abusing me? You can scream all you want now, it's useless. Be careful, I won't be nice. Come on, seeing your cultivation, I'm too lazy to immobilize you. I just like seeing you struggle. Don't worry, you'll be gentle. Jiang laughed very proudly, grabbing Guan's wrists with her hands, pinning him down. Then Guan felt something soft press on his face, beginning to explore around. Not good. This guy's gone wild. A thought crossed Guan's mind, and the earth suddenly trembled. Jiang immediately stopped, not daring to move. Guan breathed a sigh of relief, but just then, Jiang suddenly launched a sneak attack, catching him off guard. Wait, it seems the disaster is over. Guan suddenly said. How can you be sure? Jiang questioned. Before finding you, I saw Sword Venerable Fudao make a move. Oh? Then you still came, it seems you also expected something to happen between us. I just saw you were prepared and didn't want to waste our time, let's go out and see. Is that so? Really, let's go up. I'll think about it. Boom. Beneath the green vine tree the earth stirred and a coffin rose, its lid popping open, and Guan immediately leaped out, then straightened his clothes. Nearly lost my virginity. I can't let the over 200 years worth of my preserved virginity be breached. Guan secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Mouth is okay but can't leak vital energy. Jiang slowly climbed out of the coffin, her hair slightly disheveled, her clothes not neat. She raised her eyes to look at Guan, giving him a seductive smile that caused him to quickly turn his head. We should stop calling me martial master. After all, I forcefully took Qing Shendan as a disciple, and Qing Shendan took you with ulterior motives, so it's not a real lineage. No, you brat never even called me martial master. Really, all men are the same, it's just that you, kid, are reluctant yet compliant, guarding against something, Jiang said, glaring at Guan. Guan dropped a sentence and left. I'm going to check the situation. He immediately slipped away. Jiang went to the edge of the pit, watching his retreating back. She licked her lips as if savoring something. When Guan returned to the third medicine valley, the valley was still bustling with activity. Stealing the 5 elements and 9-fingered divine lord had also come back, standing together with Shin Shinzi, separated by a restriction, discussing the formidable power of Sword Venerable Fudao, unable to contain their emotions. To suppress the entire Great Cold Demon sect with one hand was too exaggerated. It subverted everyone's understanding. For decades, the power of the Great Cold Demon sect had been deeply rooted in people's hearts. Only because of understanding the terror of the Great Cold Demon sect did everyone realize how incredibly powerful Sword Venerable Fudao was. Guan looked up and saw a figure hovering above the great heavenly spirit land, watching the continent where Guan was. The 9th layer of the carefree immortal realm. Although only one small realm higher than the Sword Venerable, the presence far surpassed the Sword Venerable, the gap enormous. Presumably he was the master of the Great Cold Demon sect. At this moment, this master only dared to watch from a distance, not daring to come down. Guan also saw those fleeing cultivators of the Great Cold Demon sect disperse like monkeys scattering from a fallen tree, already completely devoid of will to fight. He did not continue to pursue the kill, one reason being that the remaining cultivators were not as powerful as those he had suppressed, and another being he felt many presences approaching, even the presence of Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma. Yes, definitely the Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma. However, the person did not come with malice, and the direction was exactly where the Holy Land of Holy Court was located. Now that the Holy Court had appeared, it would not be appropriate for him to continue the chase. Next, it would be seen what stance the Holy Court took. Guan brought up his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, 210/790 407 832, physique, primordial karmic body, cultivation level, Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma realm, 9th layer, 790 million years of lifespan. Guan suddenly felt like cursing. That was too awesome. The guilt from the killing faded instantly. Besides, he had not killed indiscriminately, he was executing justice on heaven's behalf, ultimately for the people. Finally he could fully upgrade. Guan grinned. Very close to 1 billion now, should he wait a bit longer? Forget it, damn it, just 100 million years. He had to wait a long time. How much longer for the remaining 200 million years? Look for a chance to break through. And it was a comprehensive upgrade. Heart surging with excitement, Guan even felt like trying out a 10 million year lifespan samsara just to see what it was. He walked towards the pavilion clusters, shouting with mana, "Today, to thank Sword Venerable Fudao for resolving the calamity, let's celebrate tonight, consider it a holiday, deacons get moving." His voice spread throughout Medicine Valley. Achieving this feat with core formation realm cultivation was not difficult, and soon various cheers rose within the valley. When Guan reached his own pavilion, Ji Xiaoyu came up to him indicating with her eyes. They both went upstairs and closed the door. "I think Sword Venerable Fudao's silhouette seemed familiar," Ji Xiaoyu said seriously, causing Guan's heart to tremble. What did that mean? Could she have linked it to me? Guan immediately became uneasy, a supreme power who suppressed the great cold demon sect spooked by a core formation realm cultivator. He asked with a frown, "Could it be that Sword Venerable Fudao originates from the Ji family?" Ji Xiaoyu shook her head. "No, I saw him in a dream, it must have been a scene from a past life." Hearing this, Guan breathed a sigh of relief, but his brows furrowed even deeper. "Today's battle was an eye-opener. I suddenly feel that I can't die too early in this life. I need to follow in the footsteps of Sword Venerable Fudao." Ji Xiaoyu spoke again, her face full of admiration. Chase after Sword Venerable Fudao? He was divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm, 9th layer. Guan didn't discourage Ji Xiaoyu. What if she really could achieve it? He started motivating Ji Xiaoyu. They chatted for a while before Ji Xiaoyu finally left, but when she reached the door she stopped, turned back to look at Guan and said, "The scent of a woman on you is stronger now. It's still the same woman as last time. You two must have entangled a bit, although you don't seem to have leaked any essence." After that, she pushed the door open and left without closing it. Guan stood there puzzled. How did she figure that out? What kind of divine skill was that, or was it a talent? Guan didn't dwell on it. Living another life, he planned to be carefree and at ease. Why worry too much, just follow his heart. He started waiting for that divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to leave, as long as the person didn't mess around, and once they left, he would find a place to break through. Chapter 300. 7 Divine Golden Bodies, Primordial Ultimate Body. The mysterious divine immortal of wondrous Dharma wandered in this mortal world region, never stepping onto the continent where Guan was located. A day and a night later he left. Starting from the second day, rumors about the great cold demon sect being annihilated single-handedly by Sword Venerable Fudao spread like a hurricane across the seas, shocking the countless beings that were fleeing. Their first reaction was disbelief, as the news sounded too preposterous. The world was in an uproar, and within the supreme sect, it was a time of celebration, with dazzling lights and decoration everywhere. Everyone was singing praises of Sword Venerable Fudao's magnificent feats and mighty power. This time, Sword Venerable Fudao's rescue efforts had a wider reach than ever before. How could they not be proud? They were unclear if there truly were immortals who cared for the common folk in this world, but at least in their hearts, Sword Venerable Fudao was an immortal who brought salvation to all living beings. The day after the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma left, Guan quietly departed from the continent. He headed south, moving away from the mortal world region where the supreme sect was located. Eventually he arrived at a desolate sea, where the number of beings was extremely sparse. Whether deep within the sea or above its surface, numerous lost souls and wild ghosts floated about. The sky above this place was covered with dense, oppressive clouds, but the spiritual energy here was quite abundant. After surveying the area with his divine sense, Guan discovered an island deep within the ocean guarded by powerful restrictions. If he were to break through forcefully, he would undoubtedly alert the entity within. He speculated that a carefree primordial immortal might be hiding inside because, although the restrictions were strong, he felt it wouldn't be difficult to break through if he wanted. No wonder the spiritual energy was so abundant here, yet there were so few beings. It turns out a malevolent deity was hidden within. Guan landed on an uninhabited isolated island and immediately activated the lifespan barrier. 790 million years of lifespan. The more he looked at it, the more invigorating it felt. He had never been so affluent before. Guan sat cross-legged in front of a withered tree, looking at his attribute panel, chuckling to himself. First, he would enjoy the moment for a while longer. After a good while, Guan then reined in his emotions and decided to give lifespan samsara a try. He would test the waters with 10 million years. If this function turned out to be ineffective, he would dismiss it forever, just like the lifespan deduction he had initiated before. You have spent 10 million years of lifespan to trigger one reincarnation evolution. Beginning connection to Tao rules, searching for reincarnation heaven and earth, you have the following heaven and earth options, choose any one. 1. Great Heavenly Spirit Land, 2. Dark Great Heaven and Earth, 3. The Great Multiverse, There's even a Great Heavenly Spirit Land? Guan thought if the reincarnation evolution reflected reality, could it be that it's not just memory fusion, but it could also affect reality itself? He wasn't sure, so after some thought he decided not to choose the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, to avoid any potential issues. He was drawn to the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. The name sounded well suited for his life-stealing ability. Since it was reincarnation evolution, perhaps he would still possess his current golden finger. That's the one. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. You choose to reincarnate into the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Considering that the Tao rules of this world cannot conceal your talent, you will retain the life-stealing ability, but cannot unlock stage-specific functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year, you were born in a village in the East Profound Domain, and your parents named you Chu Lu. At the age of 7, you accidentally pulled up a spirit grass in the mountains, stealing 8 years of lifespan, marking a turning point in your destiny. At the age of 8, you took an immortal cultivator as a master and traveled the world with him. At 15, you encountered a cultivator robbery. To protect you, your master died. You harbored a grudge, hid in the mountains, and began to accumulate lifespan. By 18, you evolved your cultivation level to the nascent soul realm through lifespan evolution, and you began your revenge. At 19, you infiltrated the residence of your enemies, killing everyone until only one person remained, a girl. Seeing her fearful demeanor, you felt some reluctance and struggled internally. Do you choose to execute her? The prompt stopped here. Guan paused for a moment, choosing not to execute her. Joking aside, with his life-stealing ability, he certainly wouldn't be hunted by this girl. You spared the girl, Qing Jialan, and resumed your path of immortal cultivation. Seeing this prompt, Guan smiled. This girl, like his junior sister, also had Lan in her name. The previous prompts had no names. It seemed the deceased don't get named unless they survive. Hold on, his parents and master were initially alive as well, but they were not named. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Could it be that this Qing Jialan would live a long time? At 20, you joined the Tai sect, and with your exceptional cultivation level and talent, you became a direct disciple, making a name for yourself within the sect. At 21, you utilized the lifespan deduction cultivation technique to master the Seven Hearts technique. At 22, jealous of you, the sect leader's son ambushed you while you were on a mission, surrounding you with his people. You executed all his followers, leaving only the sect leader's son alive. He knelt before you, begging for mercy, and you hesitated. Do you choose to execute him? Kill. Guan didn't hesitate, and the prompt continued to appear. Killing men and sparing women? Seems like there's something wrong with the standard, huh? Guan criticized himself internally. Subsequently, him in the reincarnation returned to the Tai sect, faced continuous strife and enmity, and he always chose to kill, since it was others who provoked him. Killing led to the unveiling of secrets, and he was pursued by the Tai sect and even placed on a wanted list. After that, almost every year he was embroiled in battles, sometimes several times within a year. Once, Guan chose to save a wounded cultivator he encountered by chance, only for that person to summon a large group of cultivators to ambush him, intending to seize the magic artifact in his possession. Angered, Guan's killing intent intensified. One betrayal after another, jealousy, and feuds kept unfolding. What an impressive turn of events. Indeed, this was the dark great heaven and earth, and the world seemed excessively grim. Over the first 50 years, Guan encountered not a single kind-hearted cultivator. He was fighting alone the entire time. The most distressing part for him was that, in order to get back at him, his enemies extracted the souls of his family still in the mountain village and refined them into resentful ghosts to be embedded in ghost devices. Furious, Guan became even more ruthless in his subsequent choices, always responding to killing with killing. His lifespan accumulated rapidly, and by 50 he had reached the cultivation level of loose immortal realm, becoming the East Profound Domain's killing god. At the age of 65, you encountered the girl you once spared, Qing Jialan. She had now become a disciple of the Blue Sky Holy Sect, a renowned genius. She recognized you and was very grateful. You were moved by her attitude. At 66, pursued by Qing Jialan, you both became Taoist friends. At 67, Qing Jialan gave birth to a son and a daughter for you, and you cherished her even more. At 68, while you were cultivating, a wandering carefree primordial immortal from the Blue Sky Holy Sect descended. He was known as the Black Profound Emperor and crushed you to death. Reincarnation ends. What? It's over already? Guwen nearly spit blood. For 10 million years of lifespan he only got 68 years of life? Black Profound Emperor. Okay, very good. Without giving Guwen time to ponder more, a vast array of memories flooded his mind, the life of Chu Lu as if he had experienced it himself. However, since it was reincarnation evolution, he didn't feel the length during the assimilation process. It was like recalling past memories, recalling some experiences, a rather peculiar sensation. Although he only lived for 68 years in this life, Chu Lu improved a cultivation technique over his lifetime, and even evolved it into a divine skill that caused a sensation in both the past and the present. Developed from the Seven Hearts technique after numerous enhancements, it is now known as the Seven Divine Gold Bodies. 7 divine gold bodies with an inherent cultivation technique. Once mastered, it forms 7 souls, each equipped with divine skills, allowing him to resurrect even if killed. In memory, getting crushed by the Black Profound Emperor wasn't as straightforward. He resurrected 6 times in the Black Profound Emperor's hands, but the result was the same. The gap in cultivation level was too vast. His teleportation divine power was unable to let him escape. After assimilating the 7 divine gold bodies, Guwen felt somewhat placated. It is hard to say if the value of the 7 divine gold bodies could match 10 million years of lifespan, but it certainly was not something to be gained with just 1 or 2 million years of lifespan. The skill was extremely powerful, allowing nascent soul realm Chu Lu to severely injure enemies of the second level of wandering immortal realm, proving its strength. It was not enough perseverance. Guwen realized that in reincarnation evolution, he could only make decisions at destiny's turning points and couldn't control his reincarnated self. Thinking about it, didn't this mean that all other worlds of reincarnation also had their own thought processes? Isn't this also the case with reincarnation in reality? Ji Xiaoyu in this life was completely different from her previous life. Guwen withdrew his thoughts, noticing that the ground was full of spiritual energy. This showed that reincarnation evolution also consumed real-world spiritual energy. Fortunately, he had changed locations to avoid affecting the Supreme Sect and the continent. Time to get down to real business. Today he would break through a major realm. Guwen accessed the attribute panel and poured 20 million years of lifespan into physique. Primordial karmic body advanced to primordial chaos body, then ascended to primordial ultimate body. Awakening the great divine power, the primordial chaos grand disk. This divine skill was an amalgamation of attack, defense, and sealing abilities, larger and more formidable than regular heaven and earth rules, possessing the might to crush heaven and earth rules. Guwen immediately trained this divine skill to mastery realm. Vast spiritual energy surged into Guwen's mind, and his consciousness entered a state of sudden enlightenment. Primordial ultimate body and primordial karmic body, although both named after primordial, had a huge disparity. By reaching ultimate body, one could easily see through heaven and earth rules as well as cause and effect, exerting absolute suppression over the primordial body type. Although Guwen had not yet encountered a primordial body type, he felt that primordial must exist. After all, it was achieved through the elevation of his own body type, indicating that if the mortals of the great heavenly spirit land traced back their ancestry, they might very well be linked to primordial. He just did not know where primordial was located. As Guwen devoured the spiritual energy, the silent and gloomy sea stirred into a tempest, as a powerful divine sense swept across the sea. Unfortunately, no matter how much it searched, it could not find Guwen. An ancient hour later, Guwen finally opened his eyes, and his physique was completely transformed into a primordial ultimate body. His current strength had reached a terrifying level, and the sensation of power was exceedingly delightful. He even wanted to find someone to test his newfound strength against. Fortunately, he resisted the urge. Cannot drift away. Chu Lu was too overconfident, killing throughout his path, only to be crushed to death by a cultivator several major realms above. Guwen looked at the cultivation technique section. Primordial chaos, supreme holy skill, and all things form and energy art were each worth 20 million years of lifespan. The reason he only used 20 million years of lifespan was that he started to covet the function that would unlock with 1 billion years of lifespan. Failing 200 times would mean 60 million years of lifespan. That's ridiculously exaggerated. Is the divine thought true immortal that mighty? It's a big leap. Guwen didn't question it much, given he hadn't even heard of the Tao Void mysterious immortal, let alone the higher divine thought true immortal. Once again, nature's spiritual energy surged towards him, the entire ocean's spiritual energy abruptly sank, and its range rapidly expanded. Damn. This commotion is a bit excessive. Guan was secretly alarmed, feeling he might once again bring about a calamity to the mortal world. The vast amounts of spiritual energy required to transition from the 9th layer of the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma to the 9th layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal far exceeded Guan's imagination. However, he could judge the resources of the great heavenly spirit land through this disturbance. If his breakthrough affected the entire great heavenly spirit land, it would indicate that the Tao void mysterious realm cultivators in the great heavenly spirit land were few and far between. While feeling the transformation within himself, Guan observed the surroundings. The range of spiritual energy extraction grew larger, and in less than 30 minutes, it exceeded the size of the area the great cold demon sect planned to annihilate and was still rapidly increasing. Time swiftly passed. An hour later, Guan forcefully achieved the Tao void mysterious immortal. Regardless of the realm, the evolutionary cultivation would always compress the breakthrough into 1 hour. The mysteries of the Tao void mysterious immortal flooded into his mind. A Tao void mysterious immortal could transcend universal rules and travel through the Great Thousand World. The so-called Great Thousand World consists of countless realms like the Great Heavenly Spirit Land, and only reaching this level would one touch the barriers of the universe. Of course, not all universes can be easily traversed, as there are also differences in strength among them. The power of a mysterious immortal is even greater, capable of transforming all things into living beings. Reaching this level means starting to condense one's own Tao. The so-called Tao is the condensation of the overall path of immortal cultivation, manifesting as will, capable of condensing a Tao form and using it to battle and suppress everything. Guan was immersed in the transformation brought by the Tao void mysterious immortal, unable to extricate himself. Only when his cultivation level broke through to the 2nd layer of the Tao void mysterious immortal realm did his consciousness awaken. He looked up, the universe no longer looked so distant to him. His gaze and divine sense reached perfect unity, allowing him even to peer into the ends of the universe. He saw the silent destruction domain described by Wuxia, a place of utter darkness emitting a terrifying aura that made it difficult for him to infiltrate lightly. For he sensed auras within that made him wary, not just one but several. Time continued to move forward. Guan began to detect the approach of various cultivators' aura. Looking up, he saw a massive number of cultivators flying out of the Holy Land where the Holy Court was located, quickly approaching, the numbers even surpassing those of the great cold demon sect. His breakthrough had indeed alarmed the Holy Court. It must be said, compared to the Holy Court, the great cold demon sect was utterly incomparable. The cultivators who flew out were of loose immortal realm at the lowest, numbering over 5 million and still increasing. More than 5 million loose immortals, what an exaggeration. He even sensed the aura of divine immortals of wondrous Dharma and carefree primordial immortals, with more than 10 divine immortals of wondrous Dharma among them. The cultivators of the Holy Court dispersed to protect various continents and islands. The ocean stirred up world-shocking waves, the speed of the sinking spiritual energy causing many continents to shatter. Seeing the Holy Court coming out to protect the common people, Guan breathed a sigh of relief, holding the Holy Court in much higher regard. He didn't want his breakthrough to result in the extinction of countless beings. It seems the support of the great cold demon sect by the Holy Court was only the will of that Holy King. If the Holy Court became his enemy in the future, regardless of the animosity, simply for today's actions of the Holy Court, he wouldn't thoroughly exterminate them. Of course, it would be even better if he could establish friendly relations with the Holy Court. Cultivation doesn't have to be all about fighting and killing. The benefits derived from slaughtering the great cold demon sect were indeed massive, but it also attracted much wariness. Look now, the battle just ended and divine immortals of wondrous Dharma have shown up, a realm previously unheard of. If he became too arrogant and a more terrifying existence than the divine thought true immortal appeared and slapped him to death with one palm, what could he do? The experience of Chu Lu was a lesson. Of course, more of Chu Lu's death was due to trusting the wrong person. Guan couldn't help but curse at him, how dare you marry into the family of someone you killed? Although initially Chu Lu was the victim, he should have stayed away from Cheng Jialan. With the Holy Court taking action, Guan felt even more at ease. He began to focus on enjoying the transformation of the Tao Void Mysterious Immortal. Reaching the 9th layer of the Tao Void Mysterious Immortal realm, what could the Holy King behind the great cold demon sect do to him? If that Holy King was also a Tao Void Mysterious Immortal, Then Guan would fight with all his might to achieve another breakthrough. Chapter 302. Absolutely not intoxicating. Under the cloak of night, the vast ocean was riddled with shadows of great cultivators flitting by, and many sea monsters leaped out of the water, making the night all the more terrifying. The isolated island where Guan was situated was surrounded by terrifying waves, which could engulf it at any moment. Yet he was still waiting for the breakthrough to conclude. The amount of spiritual energy needed for each minor realm within the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm far exceeded that for breakthroughs in previous major realms. Guan had been observing the outside world, for he wanted to know the impact of this breakthrough on the great heavenly spirit land. By now, the range of the descending spiritual energy had become enormously exaggerated. However, in comparison to the entire great heavenly spirit land, it was still not sufficient to shake the whole. The great heavenly spirit land was far too vast. Even though Guan could now see beyond the heavens, he could not overlook the vastness within the great heavenly spirit land. As time elapsed, more and more great cultivators arrived to protect the oceans from all corners, and even sects that Guan previously dared not spy upon sent out great cultivators. Even the dynasty populated entirely by heavenly spirit life forms had sent people out. Guan suddenly discovered an interesting point. The immortal spirit dynasty and the holy court were situated on opposite sides of the great heavenly spirit land, as distant from each other as possible, giving a clear demarcation. He would have to find an opportunity to learn about the immortal spirit dynasty from Baizia next time. Guan saw that apart from this stretch of the ocean, the continents and islands and other seas were all protected by great cultivators, even floating in the air near the continent where the supreme sect was located, holding back the waves. The holy court's efficiency was truly formidable. It could offer swift protection to the common people within a short period of time, truly worthy of its name. It is worth mentioning that the carefree primordial immortal of this ocean region had been the target of a manhunt. He was besieged by several other carefree primordial immortals and had already fled to outer heaven. Guan couldn't help but mourn him silently. My sin, my sin. Although the other party became involved because of him, Guan had no choice, he had to break through. Going anywhere would attract attention. Going to outer heaven would attract at least those at the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, which would be far too dangerous. However, considering the current commotion, Guan's next breakthrough would have to take place outside of heaven. Although outer heaven was dangerous, Tao Void mysterious immortal was not weak. Guan had already seen the words, divine thought true immortal, and had a vast lifespan. He couldn't feel at ease without reaching the 9th layer of divine thought true immortal. He would have to control his next breakthrough a bit more. Reaching the 9th layer, he would have to restrain himself and not prematurely peer into the name of the next realm, lest his heart itch with curiosity. Guan thought silently to himself. The anomalies above the ocean had not affected outer heaven. The moon set and the sun rose. When morning arrived, the turmoil of spiritual energy over the ocean gradually returned to calm. Guan had finally reached the 9th level of Tao Void mysterious immortal. He slowly opened his eyes, and the golden patterns on his forehead shone with an illusory vertical golden eye. The pupil of the primordial divine eye was gradually turning black, then deep gray, making this vertical eye all the more terrifying and oppressive. With a thought, Guan caused the primordial divine eye to disappear. He slowly stood up. Without taking a step, his figure vanished on the spot from the island. Almost instantaneously, he arrived within the Nianchu cave of Heavenly Phoenix Mountain. Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing and Tian Bai were all immersed in cultivation. The cave was quiet, save for the sound of dripping water, exuding a profound serenity. Guan clapped his hands and the 3 demons awoke. They quickly came out of the house and upon seeing Guan, were overjoyed and rushed to meet him. Master, what exactly happened outside these past 2 days? Yes indeed, such a terrifying aura came through. Master, are you all right? The 3 demons chattered excitedly, their questions buzzing with enthusiasm. Guan felt a pang of guilt. He should have visited sooner, instead he had let them worry for so long. Come on, let's go to the outer world cave, Guan called out, then took the 3 demons away with him. Along the way the 3 demons talked incessantly, and Guan did not hide anything from them, recounting the calamities they encountered outside. Divine exotic resentful ghosts, divine exotic ghost kings, the great cold demon sect, the heavenly fire catastrophe and more. All of these stories made them tremble with fear. But hearing from Guan that the calamity had passed, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. They began to wonder who had resolved the calamity. Guan said even he wasn't sure. When they arrived at the outer world cave, Guan raised his hand. Countless storage bags, storage rings and storage dharma artifacts flew out of his sleeves and piled up on the open ground. The three demons were stunned. Tian Yaoer couldn't help but ask, "Why are there so many?" Guan didn't answer. After piling the collected storage dharma artifacts into a mountain, he swept over them with his divine sense, dispelling all restrictions. In an instant he obliterated anything that might be harmful. "I entrust these to you." On ordinary days, refrain from touching them to avoid attracting powerful beings, Guan warned them. In truth, no matter how much they handled them, they wouldn't attract other cultivators. He was only worried they might accidentally harm themselves. The three demons nodded blankly, still not fully grasping the situation. Guan didn't explain further and disappeared on the spot. Tianbai came to her senses and tentatively asked, "Could the mysterious great power who saved us from the calamity be our master?" Tian Yaoer had a strange expression. Long suspecting that Guan downplayed his own strength when he said he was no match for the Heaven Phoenix Demon Mother, she became even more certain now. She just didn't understand why Guan would hide his true cultivation level. Elsewhere, Guan returned to the Supreme Sect. The continent where the Supreme Sect resided had not been affected by the disturbances of the previous night, though the winds between the heavens and the earth were a bit stronger. He first returned to the 8 scenic caves to inform Jianghu that the great cold demon sect had been eradicated. Jianghu was shocked and immediately left. Guan didn't follow her. Instead, he used the teleportation array in the valley to return to the third medicine valley. Even after 2 days had passed, the atmosphere in the valley was still lively. Most people were discussing the great cold demon sect. Stealing the 5 elements and 9-fingered divine lord resumed their chess game, occasionally shouting, drawing laughter from the surrounding disciples. The servant disciples who were laboring were also spirited, and even the white spirit rat under the mystic pure tree was unusually awake, lying at Enzin's feet, enjoying her petting. Everything seemed so harmonious, bringing a smile to Guan's face. He had taken the risk to intervene so that he could see such a scene every day. Guan walked towards his own loft, his divine sense turned towards outer heaven. His next breakthrough had to take place in outer heaven. He wondered if it was because of last night's anomaly, but there were many great cultivators patrolling above the great heavenly spirit land. Although their cultivation levels were not as high as his, he still didn't want to appear at this critical juncture. He would wait for those great cultivators to disperse before he went to outer heaven for the breakthrough. With his remaining lifespan, breaking through to divine thought true immortal should not be difficult. Thinking of this, Guan's mood became even more pleasant. He hummed a tune as he ascended to his loft, where the blood prison great saint, lying in wait, watched his master, deep in thought. After Guan entered and closed the door, blood prison great saint finally thought, "The master seems to have become stronger again. How high is his realm?" Stealing the 5 elements had always been winning, quite arrogantly at that. Seeing their master defeat him, how could the disciples not be exhilarated? 9-fingered divine lord was amused. It turned out it wasn't that he was inadequate. Rather, Guan truly possessed extraordinary comprehension in the ways of chess. Guan left amid the cheers of the disciples, his face wearing a smug smile. "Play against me? You'll need another 100 million years of practice." Guan admitted that those at the 9th layer of heaven and earth flying immortal realm were powerful, just 27 small realms below him. Returning to the loft, Guan sat down and opened his attribute panel. He felt regret over the previous lifespan samsara and wished to start another game. After all, there were still plenty of holy court great cultivators patrolling outside heaven, so there was no rush to break through. Just one game and definitely not getting carried away. You consume 10 million years of lifespan to initiate one reincarnation evolution. Connecting with Tao rules. Searching for reincarnation worlds. You can choose one of the following worlds: 1. Great Heavenly Spirit Land. 2. 9 Extreme Great Heaven and Earth. 3. Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Guan hesitated for a moment before deciding he would still choose the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Where one falls, there one shall rise. This time he would not repeat the same mistakes. You have chosen to reincarnate into the Dark Great Heaven and Earth. Considering that the Tao rules of this world cannot conceal your talent, you shall retain your ability to seize lifespan, but you will not be able to unlock stage-wise functions. Reincarnation evolution begins. In the first year, you are born into a noble household within the Beiqian domain's Great Xia Holy Dynasty, blessed by your parents with the name Xiao Xingtian. At the age of 5, while you are fast asleep, you fall victim to poisoning by a concubine of your father's third wife. Before you lose consciousness, you glimpse her figure. Fortunately, your mother discovers you in time, allowing for your rescue. Once your strength returns, your grandfather gathers the family in the Great Hall. Faced with your grandfather's query, will you choose to expose that you were poisoned by the third wife's concubine? Chapter 303 Fighting Will, Guan's hostility. Seeing the prompt of reincarnation evolution, Guan hesitated. If it had been earlier, he would have definitely chosen to expose the crimes of the third concubine to seek justice for himself, but Chu Lu's short life had left him with a psychological shadow. Although lifespan samsara was just an evolution and would not harm his original self, he was toying with 10 million years of lifespan. Moreover, the prompt was brief, and he couldn't analyze the specifics of the situation or understand the background of the third concubine. What if exposing her would bring about a deadly disaster? Forget it, he should endure it for now. Although it was a grieving, it wasn't something he personally experienced. You choose to reveal you were poisoned by the third concubine. A turmoil in the Shao Kingdom's mansion thus resolved. At the age of 8, you began to practice swordsmanship and accidentally cut a spirit grass during the process, claiming 8 years of lifespan and marking a turning point in your life of immortal cultivation. At 12, thanks to lifespan evolution, your cultivation level broke through to the nascent soul realm. At 17, the Great Ming dynasty was besieged by 3 dynasties, the lands shattered, and you followed the Shao family's southward migration, continuously encountering attacks and fierce battles, and your lifespan grew quickly. At 18, during the escape, you encountered 2 severely injured cultivators, one male and one female, each begging you to save them and kill the other, plunging you into hesitation. You choose to save the male or the female, to kill the male or the female. Neither save nor kill. Guan made his choice without hesitation. You didn't make a move, you watched the 2 die, and after their death you took their storage bags. Seeing this line of prompt, Guan almost cursed loudly. Why so impulsive? The following years were filled with various escapes and battles. No. At 27, an elder of the Great Dayan sect from the Mahayana realm suspected you of slaughtering his descendants since you possessed their descendants' storage bag. You vehemently denied it, yet he still tried to kill you, and finally, both of you were heavily injured, and you got separated from your family. Fighting a Mahayan realm cultivator at the age of 27, Shao Xingtian indeed had some substance. It seems his path was quite wild. Guan lamented in his heart. He could only see a general description and didn't know how many enemies Shao Xingtian had killed during this process. At 30, you entered the Luoqing sect to focus on cultivation. At 45, the Shao family was slaughtered. Deeply grieving upon learning this, you began to investigate who the enemy was. At 50, after 5 years of investigation, you found that the power that slaughtered the Shao family was the Li family from the East Profound Domain. You left the Luoqing sect alone to rush to the East Profound Domain. Seeing the words East Profound Domain, Guan secretly felt that something was amiss. Why, out of nowhere, was his family destroyed again? Speaking of which, Guan in this life also had no relatives, living alone in the Ji family mansion. Could this be fate? At 60, you stormed the secret realm assessment of the East Profound Saint Mansion, swept through the geniuses of East Profound Domain, and became renowned throughout the world. At 70, you cultivated the heavenly gang holy body in the East Profound Saint Mansion. The mansion master favored you greatly, wishing to betroth his youngest daughter to you, whether you accept. Do not accept. You refused the mansion master's goodwill. He then took you as a disciple, and you received great cultivation resources from the East Profound Saint Mansion. Guan smiled when he saw this. That's more like it. The following life was filled with various cultivations. Shao Xingtian continually enhanced his physique, cultivation technique and divine skills. His choices were limited, focusing on only one method of each type. Years swiftly passed. At 137 you participated in the holy competitions of the 5 domains. With an overwhelmingly dominant appearance, you claimed the title of the strongest prodigy of the era, and the name of the heavenly gang holy body spread across the great heaven and earth. At 138 you encountered a cultivator from the Li family during an externship. Due to a deep-seated hatred, you erupted into conflict with the Li family, encountering a mysterious carefree primordial immortal who intervened and nearly killed you. Fortunately, a cultivator named Hanging Pot saved you when you were severely injured. At 139, before your injuries fully healed, the Li family attacked again, vowing to annihilate you. Hanging Pot consumed his true yuan. using a great divine power to shift you and his children into a spacetime rift. The three of you fell into the Dark Continent. At 140, Hanging Pot's son couldn't withstand the invasion of dark powers, ultimately perishing, his soul turning into a dark undead and disappearing, and you took his sister to search for him. At 142, the two of you failed to escape the Dark Continent. Hanging Pot's daughter also turned into a dark undead. You, enraged, began slaughtering the dark undead of the Dark Continent. At 143, you encountered the Black Profound Emperor from the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm, who extinguished your soul. Reincarnation ends. What? Damn Black Profound Emperor again. How did he reach the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm this time? Guan's eyes widened, his anger uncontainable. If the Black Profound Emperor had the ability to anticipate lifespan, he would have already sensed the intense hostility from Guan. This guy had been squatting on him for 2 lifetimes, how could he bear it? Guan immediately vanished inside the room and teleported to the ocean floor of another world, then he activated the lifespan barrier. A surge of vast memories rushed into his mind. An hour later, Guan opened his eyes, his face showing complex emotions. Xiao Shengshan's life was more splendid than Chu Lu's, advancing triumphantly, enjoying life fiercely with gratitude and resentment, possessing the fame of the strongest talent of the contemporary era, and he also encountered many beautiful women. Regrettably, he still died. In his memories, Guan learned about the horrors of the Dark Continent, which was even larger than the entire great heavenly spirit land, impossible to fly to the outer heaven, the world dim and vast as if never able to escape, and a mysterious power called Dark Force devouring him. If not for the sufficiently powerful heavenly gang holy body, Xiao Xingtian might not have lasted until the day he met the Black Profound Emperor. It must be said, the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm Black Profound Emperor was truly terrifying. Guan not only possessed memories but could also deeply experience the feelings of the time. When the Black Profound Emperor killed him, he seemed to deliberately preserve his flesh. The thought of his body being used by the Black Profound Emperor really irked Guan. He also did not know where the Dark Continent was, whether the timing could match up, and if they met, if the opponent's cultivation was not as good as his, he must make the Black Profound Emperor truly feel despair. The second reincarnation evolution ended at only 143 years old, which was quite annoying. However, the gain was greater than last time. Although the heavenly gang holy body was not as good as his primordial ultimate body, he could pass it on to his disciples in the future. The real gain was Xiao Shengshan's will. Xiao Xingtian cultivated a kind of fighting will. The more severe the injury, the stronger the burst of strength, capable of sweeping all opponents of the same realm, and even had a chance to counter-kill higher realm opponents. Of course, for Guan, the main use of the fighting will was manifested in crossing the tribulation. With this will, would his evolutionary practice in crossing the tribulation be easier? Guan felt deeply and pondered whether he in the Tao Void mysterious immortal realm was stronger than the Black Profound Emperor. With his whole Bodis ultimate skills, he really wanted to try challenging the Black Profound Emperor. He then disappeared from the seabed, returning to the attic of the Third Medicine Valley. Although merging memories caused some disturbance, it wasn't as significant as his previous breakthrough. Guan sat on a chair, suddenly feeling like trying again. He couldn't pick the Dark Continent next time. There was no need to stubbornly confront the Black Profound Emperor. Forget it. Bad luck. In the reincarnation evolution, Guan could only make significant choices. He couldn't control how his evolving self specifically acted, meaning reincarnation evolution was unknown. Since it was unknown, it needed to be mystical. Moreover, Guan still needed to break through. He couldn't get overexcited and delay his breakthrough. Guan took out the Green Hero Travelogue and flipped through a few pages, completely shifting his thoughts. This book is truly incredible. Even if Xian Tianyi died now, with this book in Guan's heart he was a saint. The news of the Great Cold Demon sect being wiped out by Sword Venerable Fudao spread wildly for a long time, making Sword Venerable Fudao's fame spread even wider. In the blink of an eye, half a year passed and time came to the end of the year. Winter snow covered the vast heaven and earth. Guan was writing a book in the attic, recording all the Taoist sorcery and ultimate skills practiced by Chu Lu and Xiao Xingtian in his lifetime into a secret book, not wishing to immediately disseminate it but just writing for fun. If it could prove useful later, he could directly bring it out. He suddenly sensed something, raised an eyebrow, then put down his pen and vanished inside the room. Far away on the ocean, Bai Zia lay on a large gourd, the gourd soaring among the clouds, his legs crossed, looking very stylish. He sensed an aura and immediately opened his eyes, leaping up. Then he saw a figure swiftly approaching, his face breaking into a surprised smile. It was Meng Lang whom he wanted to see. Guan quickly flew in front of Bai Zia and greeted with a fist and palm salute. Taoist friend Bai, didn't expect to meet you here. Bai Zia frankly stated his purpose, then greeted him back, smiling. Taoist friend Meng, long time no see, are you well? Have you been affected by the Great Cold Demon Sect? He had already flown into the area endangered by the Great Cold Demon Sect, of course. This was just the peripheral region, so Guan dared to meet him. No, I wasn't here at the time, I only came back after hearing that the Great Cold Demon Sect was extinguished. Guan shook his head. Doing well? Quite good, just broke through to the 9th layer of the Dao Void mysterious immortal realm. Bai Zia invited Guan onto the gourd, and he unceremoniously joined. The two began discussing the Great Cold Demon Sect and Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Bai Zia was shocked by this matter. He didn't expect such a big event to occur within the Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Although the Great Cold Demon Sect wasn't comparable to Mortal World Peak, it wouldn't be far off. To wipe out the Great Cold Demon Sect with one's own power, its Taoist level was unimaginable. There were still survivors from the Great Cold Demon Sect, but they were like scattered monkeys after a tree falls, many enemies kicking them while down. Bai Zia was very curious about Sword Venerable Fu Dao, asking Guan when this person had emerged. Guan then said he was in seclusion before, also unsure when Sword Venerable Fu Dao appeared. The two talked for a long time, and the conversation was mostly Guan asking questions and Bai Zia patiently answering. An hour later, Guan suddenly asked, Taoist friend Bai, have you ever heard of the Dark Continent? Bai Zia frowned, surprised. He asked, the Dark Continent? Never heard of it. Is it powerful? Where is it? Hearing this, Guan could only say, I'm not clear either, just heard a senior mention this name so I was curious. Afterward he bid farewell to Bai Zia. Bai Zia hurriedly said, Mortal World Peak will soon hold a 10,000-year summit, you must come, officially taking over as Peak Master. Guan nodded, then flew toward the direction away from the Supreme Sect. As he flew far away, Bai Zia muttered, Dark Continent? Why does it feel like I've heard it somewhere? Chapter 304. Breakthrough to the Divine Thought. True Immortal Realm 9 Layers. After bidding farewell to Bai Zia, Guan took a detour, only then returning to the 3rd Medicine Valley. He finished writing the current secret book, then went downstairs to join the disciples in shoveling snow. During the process of shoveling snow, his thoughts were constantly in outer heaven. When would those wandering cultivators of the Holy Court disperse? They couldn't stop Guan. He was just worried that the noise from his breakthrough would be too loud and attract them near the lifespan barrier. What if someone intruded? Guan didn't want to make unnecessary enemies with the Holy Court, nor did he want anyone to discover his true cultivation level. He could only wait. As winter passed and spring arrived, the years went by. The news of Sword Venerable Fu Dao's world-saving feats spread widely across this region of the mortal world, earning more and more praises, and his fame spread throughout the great heaven and earth. Relative to the tumultuous seas, the continent quickly calmed down since they had heard of Sword Venerable Fu Dao's feats not for the first time. However, a change in the dynamics occurred in the human race's world. The forces that had fled returned but could no longer maintain their former dominance, while those who stayed behind gained more support and developed rapidly. The other continent on the Nine Nether Road was even more dangerous. The sects and families of the Taizong dynasty couldn't secure a footing there, and the fleeing forces returned in disgrace within a few years. Jianghu also returned to the Zhuhua sect, beginning to develop the sect peacefully. Guan's days returned to being leisurely. Before he knew it, 10 years had passed. The wandering cultivators of the Holy Court outside heaven finally dispersed, and Guan was waiting for this day. He immediately set off, leaving quietly. In just one step, he reached the depths of the universe, flying towards a location he had chosen long ago. It was a gigantic meteorite, even larger than the continent where the Supreme Sect was located. Guan landed on the meteorite. Looking around, the great heavenly spirit land seemed very distant. Reckoned for a heaven and earth flying immortal, it would also be impossible to spy with the naked eye. Turning around, the universe's depths behind him were extremely dark. From here to the silent destruction domain was closer than to the great heavenly spirit land. This was also intentional on his part, to make the Holy Court think that the anomalies were caused by a heavenly demon. He sat down on the spot, activating the lifespan barrier. He then pulled up his attribute panel. Name, Guan, lifespan, 220/639-660-342, physique, primordial ultimate body, cultivation level, divine immortal of wondrous Dharma realm 9th layer. This lifespan was truly a delight to behold. He had to be more careful about this breakthrough. The last time he crossed the lifespan barrier he had consumed tens of millions of years of lifespan, a figure that could not be ignored. Guan took a deep breath, deciding to directly aim for a breakthrough in cultivation level. Tribulation every 300,000 years, still quite frightening. 1 billion, get on board. You practice chi absorption cultivation for 300,000 years. With the great accomplishment of the infinitive creation Dharma, you forcefully struck at the divine thought true immortal realm, began facing the tribulation. You failed to endure 49 heavenly Tao mysterious void tribulations, and the tribulation failed. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 600,000 years. With the great accomplishment of the infinitive creation Dharma, you forcefully struck at the divine thought true immortal realm, began facing the tribulation. You failed to endure 49 heavenly Tao mysterious void tribulations, and the tribulation failed. Guan remained expressionless, already used to failure. No matter, he still had 5 billion years, he didn't believe they could drain him completely. However, something terrible happened. When his tribulation failures exceeded 100 times, his expression became grave. When his tribulation failures exceeded 200 times, his expression became ugly. When 1 billion years were all used up, he was on the verge of a breakdown. What was this heavenly Tao 49 mysterious void tribulation? Was it this absurd? Once Guan successfully broke through, he must investigate the origin of this heavenly tribulation. Even within the same realm, heavenly tribulations are not fixed. Taking mortal world peak for instance, their recorded types of heavenly tribulations exceeded 10,000. The rule summarized by the immortal cultivation world is that the more powerful you are within the same realm, the more terrifying the heavenly tribulation. However, those cultivators, despite an increased difficulty in their tribulation, could rely on formations, dharma treasures, and sect teachings for support. Guan could only rely on himself, owning no dharma treasures. After a full aspect promotion, he himself was terrifyingly strong. How could such a him fail more than 300 times? Guan gritted his teeth, choosing to commit 30 million years of lifespan. From 1 billion to 30 million, it wasn't that he was frightened, he just felt he was close to succeeding and didn't want to waste lifespan. However, all failed again. Guan's eyes began to redden. He couldn't believe it. Another 30 million years. Dare to consume 500 million years. When Guan's thoughts settled, he still failed. Another 30 million years. Failed. Just as Guan was preparing to continue investing, the prompt finally changed its length. He succeeded. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 2,330,000,000 years. With the great accomplishment of the infinitive creation Dharma, you forcefully struck at the divine thought true immortal realm, began facing the tribulation, and you endured the 49 heavenly Tao mysterious void tribulations. Tribulation succeeded, and your cultivation level broke through to the first layer of divine thought true immortal realm. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 260 million years. Your cultivation level rose to the second layer of divine thought true immortal realm. You practiced chi absorption cultivation for 300 million years. Your cultivation level was enhanced 4 million years to not break through a minor realm. Is divine thought true immortal that exaggerated? Feeling spiritual energy flowing into his body, Guan hurriedly continued to invest lifespan. 3rd layer. 4th layer. He must reach the 9th layer to feel at ease. Eventually, he spent another 54 million years of lifespan and finally reached the 9th layer of divine thought true immortal realm. The mighty spiritual energy surged into his body, its scale far surpassing that when breaking through the Tao void mysterious immortal realm. Not only that, he found himself also absorbing the universal laws pervading the cosmos. He immediately closed his eyes to meticulously experience it. As he closed his eyes, the universal laws became clear, those laws falling and then vanishing into thin air, finally appearing imperceptibly inside the lifespan barrier. Soon, Guan noticed a divine sense sweeping over from the silent destruction domain. It was the carefree primordial immortal. As time passed, the noise from the breakthrough grew louder, attracting more and more divine senses, with the lowest being at the heaven and earth flying immortal realm. After 30 minutes, Guan sensed the divine sense of a divine immortal of wondrous Dharma. Fortunately, those guys didn't dare show themselves yet, only daring to hide and use divine sense to spy. About half an ancient hour passed. Guan suddenly sensed something, subconsciously opened his eyes, and then his eyes widened. He saw a pair of eyes appearing in the cosmic darkness, ordinary human race eyes, just like Immortals, except the gaze was very detached. These eyes were large, with the stars and continents of the universe completely tiny like dust before them. Guwen felt as though he was being watched by the other, which made him feel uneasy. Could the lifespan barrier have been seen through? After a while, the pupils of those eyes finally shifted away. Guwen breathed a sigh of relief, daring to play such a dirty trick? Thinking I would be scared to jump out and beg for mercy? Unbearable. Just then he finally succeeded in his breakthrough, and a stream of memories began flowing into his mind, all about Divine Thought True Immortal. Divine Thought True Immortal, Divine Sense transformed into Divine Thought, with immensely powerful thoughts that could kill enemies or cast spells through thought alone. True Immortal then is a true immortal. His flesh and spirit underwent another transformation, and once completed, he would be an immortal conforming to the heavenly creation, not one just enhanced through cultivation. Guwen's consciousness immersed in the legacy memories, he saw many images. He could peer into the past lives of any beings that had a karmic connection with him, a very peculiar feeling. However, he couldn't see Ji Xiaoyu's past life. He could only start from where Ji Xiaoyu was born in this life. The most surprising thing for him was that he could even peek into the lives of beings with karmic ties established with Chu Lu and Xiaoxing Tian. If so, doesn't this prove that reincarnation evolution could really turn into reality? This led Guwen into endless conjecture. He was immersed in the karmic images, unable to extricate himself, not feeling the slightest discomfort but rather a kind of indescribable ease. Peering into karma, his mind was filled with countless images, yet it felt as exhilarating as chi absorption cultivation, making him even more invigorated. By the time Guwen successfully broke through to the Divine Thought True Immortal realm, he was still in those images. Cultivation continued to break through. From the first layer to the second layer. From the second layer to the third layer. Gradually, powerful beings began passing by this area, sweeping over the meteorite where he was located. Chapter 305. Absolute Order. After Guwen reached the 9th layer of the Divine Thought True Immortal realm, the spiritual energy and rules within the universe that had been violently disturbed returned to tranquility. Looking around, powerful figures were darting in all directions, while the pair of eyes that had been spying on the universe had already disappeared. Guwen slowly opened his eyes, his gaze indifferent. Having seen so many lives, his Taoist heart had been elevated, and in the unknown reaches, he had even touched upon a Tao that belonged to himself. The Tao is long and profound, necessitating accumulation over lengthy eons. Currently, Guwen possessed only cultivation level. Wishing to strengthen his Tao, he needed to traverse real time in reality. Of course, this did not mean Guwen was weaker compared to others at the same realm. The Tao was merely the direction for his future cultivation. 9 heavens of immortal path, Divine Thought True Immortal was already the 8th heaven. Chi cultivation, foundation establishment, core formation, nascent soul, divinity transformation, void crossing, unification, mystic heart, Mahayana, nirvana, loose immortal, wandering immortal, heaven and earth flying immortal, carefree primordial immortal, divine immortal of wondrous dharma, Tao void mysterious immortal, Divine Thought True Immortal. Unknowingly, Guwen had transcended so many major realms. He was only 220 years old now. His future achievements were limitless. What realm lies above the 9 heavens? Guwen fell into endless reverie, uncaring about the figures moving in various directions. Let alone other Divine Thought True Immortals, currently no Tao void mysterious immortal had appeared, likely hidden in the shadows. Considering the mysterious giant eye he had encountered before, he now recalled and still could not see through the opponent's cultivation level. Guwen looked at the consumption of the lifespan barrier and frowned. This breakthrough alone had consumed over 50 million years of lifespan. Now he had only 340 million years left. This breakthrough exhausting nearly 300 million years made it hard to imagine how many years the next breakthrough would require. Nevertheless, the cultivation of the 9th layer of Divine Thought True Immortal realm was enough for him to protect himself. Guwen stood up, thinking of the scene inside the 3rd Medicine Valley Pavilion. Just as the thought arose, he returned indoors. This was the prowess of a Divine Thought True Immortal. Thinking of a place, moving at will, he had already achieved the ability to be omnipresent to an initial extent. The whole heaven and earth appeared different to Guwen. He saw more rules and the universe became clearer. He once again spied on the great heavenly spirit land, his divine sense far surpassing his previous divine perception. allowing him to penetrate the formations and restrictions of those great powers without being noticed. This great heaven and earth indeed harbored divine immortals of wondrous dharma. Though few in number, all were in seclusion, detached from worldly affairs. Guan's gaze turned to the immortal spirit dynasty, which was located on a continent much larger than the one beneath his feet, with newborns starting at the nirvana realm. There, too, were divine immortals of wondrous dharma, even Tao void mysterious immortals, as well as places too profound to probe. In his eyes, the standard for being unprovable was silence. His divine thought could forcefully intrude, but it would surely disturb the beings inside. This immortal spirit dynasty is strong. If it weren't for the holy court, it would not be difficult for this dynasty to unify the great heavenly spirit land. However, they seemed not to desire hegemony but were isolated from the world. Guan saw no immortals coming in and out. He then turned his divine thoughts towards the holy court at the other end of heaven and earth. The baseline of the holy court was not as high as that of the immortal spirit dynasty, but the number of beings in the holy court was extremely large, incomparable to the immortal spirit dynasty, and the number of beings at the same realm was also greater than that of the immortal spirit dynasty. If the immortal spirit dynasty was taking an elite route, the holy court was developing in all aspects, and it held absolute control over the great heavenly spirit land. There were also places in the holy court that Guan would not offend lightly, but after roughly spying around, Guan felt that the holy court was still stronger than the immortal spirit dynasty. During his observation, Guan saw the carefree primordial immortals moving in and out of the great heavenly spirit land in ways that beings could not perceive. He secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, after reaching the heaven and earth flying immortal realm, he had not acted recklessly. Otherwise, when the carefree primordial immortal arrived in front of him, he would not even have been aware. After reaching the divine thought true immortal realm, Guan was better able to sense the foundation of the great heavenly spirit land, and of course, he also had his own confidence, not so fearful of the holy court. Guan vaguely saw the chief fortune of the holy court forming an invisible passage, leading deep into the universe, entering the annihilation zone. His gaze involuntarily turned towards the annihilation zone. The universe was vast and boundless, and the annihilation zone was not just in one direction but surrounded the cosmic region where the great heavenly spirit land was located, although the great heavenly spirit land was closer to one side. Thus, the beings of the great heavenly spirit land who flew out mistook that the silent destruction domain was only in one direction. Even for a heaven and earth flying immortal, flying to the annihilation zone from another direction would take many years, enough to see how vast the universe is. Guan retracted his divine thoughts, filled with emotion. This world was different from what he had anticipated. Due to the influence of past life culture, he felt that if there was the immortal path there would be order, with immortals governing all things under heaven and reincarnation constraining yin-yang. Yet in reality there was none. There were realms of immortal path but no immortals governing the heavenly Tao. There were reincarnation and yin-yang, yet no order like that of the underworld. Now, having observed the universe, Guan had only one feeling. There was chaos. There was no absolute order. Guan thought that there might be an even vaster world on the other end of the universe, with the silent destruction domain impeding the steps of the beings of the great heavenly spirit land, especially since he had learned through reincarnation evolution about the existence of other great lands. Speaking of the dark great land alone, he felt that the dark great land was stronger and larger than the great heavenly spirit land. This was normal. Baizia had mentioned that the current great heavenly spirit land was just a fragment. How vast the true great heavenly spirit land was hard to imagine. Guan couldn't help but think of his juniors, his disciples. His pride faded along. Though a divine thought true immortal was indeed powerful, he had not yet reached a stage where he could command reincarnation. At least he could not make those around him immortal. He was planning to visit Yilan after some time to see if he could help extend her ultimate lifespan. Guan raised his hand, tapping the desktop with a finger. This action was transmitting mana. He was enhancing the mana within the heaven-cutting axe while also strengthening the words righteous path on the heavenly repair platform. Since the prestige of Sword Venerable Fudao had already been established, he would just have to maintain it. At the end of summer, the weather was gradually cooling. In the woods, Guan was guiding Yang Jian in his cultivation. Yang Jian wielded a trident and blade, his attacks swift and powerful, yet unable to harm Guan, who with just 2 fingers could block all his attacks. This trident and blade were forged by order of Li Xiandao and had already been given to Yang Jian, but typically inside Medicine Valley Yang Jian would not bring out this divine weapon. The making of this divine weapon was similar to that of the heaven-cutting axe, weighing 1,000,000 jin, and it contained special restrictions inside that enhanced its strike force. A disciple couldn't help but inquire about the background of the Holy Court from Nine-Fingered Divine Lord, who did not conceal anything and began to introduce the Holy Court. Hearing that the Holy Court was the overlord of the entire world, the disciples' dissatisfaction quickly dissipated. Immediately after, they started to worry about Sword Venerable Fudao leaving. Without Sword Venerable Fudao, what would they do in case of another crisis in the future? Meanwhile, Guan sensed that the heaven and earth flying immortal who had transmitted the message had already stepped onto the heavenly repair platform. He immediately stood up to go watch the excitement. Inside the outer gate city, the crowd was buzzing. People on the heavenly repair platform were discussing the Holy Court, many also believing that the Holy Court was undervaluing Sword Venerable Fudao. A man in white walked among the crowd, his pace not quick, his long sleeves fluttering, his appearance handsome, holding a folding fan in his hand. He wore a smile on his face, his heart scornful. A group of mortals dares to question the Holy Court? The man in white was not angry, he would not bother with mortals over this, and since this was Sword Venerable Fudao's territory, it would not be good to offend Sword Venerable Fudao. A great power capable of eradicating the great cold demon sect was not someone he could provoke. After delivering the Holy Minister's message, he did not care whether Sword Venerable Fudao agreed or not. He now wanted to try out that heaven-cutting axe. Before coming to Supreme Sect, he had heard about the legend of the heaven-cutting axe while traveling in the Taizong dynasty. How dare this scoundrel try to poach the Sword Venerable? Outrageous. The commotion caused by Lu Xini attracted the attention of everyone on the heavenly repair platform, but he didn't pull for too long. After a few breaths, he released his hand. He let out a long sigh, stepped back and said with a smile, "Sword Venerable Fudao is indeed as reputed, I am impressed." After that, he raised his hand in salute to the heaven-cutting axe, then turned and left. The cultivators along the way made way for him, afraid of offending him. Just from the commotion earlier, they felt they were not in a position to provoke him. Guan stood among the crowd and also gazed at Lu Xini. Soon, Lu Xini disappeared from the platform, prompting discussion among the cultivators there. Guan then headed down the platform. Since he was here, he might as well take a stroll. Otherwise, stealing the 5 elements and Nine-Fingered Divine Lord would suspect why he specifically came to watch Lu Xini. Of course, the most important reason was that Guan did not want to play go with stealing the 5 elements. These guys were playing slower and slower games. Guan certainly understood their malicious intentions. Indeed, at this moment, stealing the 5 elements was still claiming the last game was a draw. Although the others didn't believe it, stealing the 5 elements was dead set on it, and no one else wanted to pursue the matter further, as the cultivation levels were quite deterring. Guan paid a visit to the Elixir Hall, where almost everyone recognized him, except for the disciples who had just started this year. His income from Medicine Valley was one of the highest in the entire Supreme Sect, not to mention he was also a core formation realm cultivator. Even having reached the divine thought true immortal realm, Guan still liked to chat with others. As for the invitation from the Holy Court, he didn't want to pay it any mind. Going to the Holy Court was likely to cause trouble, and he certainly didn't want any of that. What if, in the process, he ended up making enemies with the Holy Court? Although Guan had wiped out the Ephemera sect, the 7-star spirit realm, and the Great Cold Demon sect, he was inherently kind-hearted and peace-loving. Well, if it's possible to avoid making enemies, then it's better not to. Not until dusk did Guan return to his valley, and by then stealing the 5 elements had long since disappeared. In the days that followed, Guan noticed that Lu Xini had no intention of leaving the Supreme Sect. Guan couldn't help praying, hoping the man wouldn't enter his Medicine Valley. The 3rd Medicine Valley had already hidden too many monsters and devils, it couldn't house any more. Summer passed and autumn arrived. In the 3rd Medicine Valley, under an old tree, Guan held the 7 stars mirror, using it like a fan, relaxing blissfully. Lu Xini watched his retreating figure, unable to let go for a long time. Luckily, this guy didn't harbor enmity toward Guan, otherwise he would have been extinguished this evening. Stealing the 5 elements immediately took the seat that Guan had vacated and said, "Let's continue, I think I have figured out your game." Lu Xini took a deep breath and could only sit down. He knew that Guan, being the Valley Master, couldn't escape, and he refused to believe that he couldn't beat a mere mortal in a game. Guan was not using an excuse, Someone was indeed looking for him. He waited at the base of his own attic. After a while, a figure flew into the valley. It was Xian Tianyi. "Big brother, long time no see," Guan exclaimed with joy. Xian Tianyi was as spirited as ever. He patted Guan on the shoulder and observed him closely, praising, "You learned to dress up, you have a bit of my aura. But your cultivation hasn't increased, you're disgracing me." Lu Xianyi, who was playing Go downstairs, heard this and immediately dismissed his doubts. Someone who could greet a junior cultivator of the Mahayana realm as a brother, could that be some profound master? It seems this lad's invention of Go really is based on unique insights. Guan took Xian Tianyi upstairs to catch up. Once inside, Xian Tianyi began to recount his experiences over the years. He too had dealt with divine exotic resentful ghosts and had a wealth of experiences. Guan listened intently, sometimes shocked, which pleased Xian Tianyi. He liked chatting with this younger brother, so invigorating. Xian Tianyi mentioned Li Ya and In Hao, especially In Hao, whose tone was filled with envy. He truly understood what an unmatched genius was. Compared to In Hao, his own talent seemed mediocre. And he had also learned that In Hao's master was Sword Venerable Fu Dao. What? His master is? No wonder, no wonder. Guan marveled. The attic was protected by Xian Tianyi's restrictions, so they didn't worry about the disciples overhearing. As for the likes of stealing the 5 elements, even if they did hear, what of it? If they dared to plot against In Hao, Guan wouldn't consider their friendship over Go. After Great Cold Demon sect withdrew, the sea became chaotic since quite a number of forces had escaped previously, freeing up a lot of maritime and land resources, and the Star Sea congregations are also vying with others over them, Xian Tianyi reflected. Although many years had passed, bringing up that event still excited him. Sword Venerable Fu Dao truly gave the Supreme Sect glory. While Xian Tianyi's heart lay with the Supreme Sect, he belonged to the Star Sea congregations. The two thus chatted passionately. Meanwhile, after beating stealing the 5 elements, Lu Xianyi stood up and left, ignoring stealing the 5 elements' requests for another match. He wandered around the valley and his attention was captured by Xin Xinzi. The Bitter Sea Buddha sect. Lu Xianyi seemed to have an idea, but he quickly shifted his gaze with no intention of approaching Xin Xinzi. He observed everyone in the valley. This medicine valley was too peculiar. The inhabitants were either terrifyingly weak or concealed immortals, with an enormous disparity. Suddenly, his gaze was again drawn to one person and this time his eyes latched on. Following his line of sight, it was Yang Jian who was weeding. Due to the vast gulf in their cultivation, Yang Jian, who had his back to Lu Xianyi, did not detect anything unusual. Until a voice came from behind him. "What is your name?" Yang Jian subconsciously stood up and turned around. He had seen Lu Xianyi from a distance before and knew that the other party had an important status and was not a simple cultivator. "My name is Yang Jian. May I know what matter brings you here, senior?" Yang Jian bowed with clasped hands, striking a balance between respect and not coming across as obsequious. Yang Jian. Lu Xianyi mused, recalling having heard this name before. It was mentioned by 2 Supreme Sect disciples in conversation, with one claiming that true Lord Erlang Yang Jian was more formidable than the great sage equaling heaven. The two even quarreled about it in the end. Chapter 307. Millennium Summit. Yang Jian knew from Lu Xianyas' expression that he had heard of Journey to the West, but hadn't read it, plus his demeanor suggested he most likely came from overseas. He immediately took out a book from his pocket and handed it to Lu Xianyi. "This is my favorite book, the most extraordinary book ever, a gift for you, my elder." Upon hearing this, Lu Xianyi quickly reached out to accept it, even bowing gratefully, which made Yang Jian feel vigilant. What's going on? Did this fellow realize he was concealing his cultivation level? Seeing the change in Yang Jian's eyes, Lu Xianyi spoke, "Thanks, I'll go read this book now since I have nothing else to do." With that he turned and left. Yang Jian watched him walk away, thought for a moment and continued weeding. It wasn't until the evening that Xian Tianyi finally left. Guan looked at the book on the table, his face full of anticipation. The latest Green Hero travelogue. Xian Tianyi truly was a saint in his eyes. Despite the chaos in recent years, that youngster still managed to write a book. You should know the Green Hero travelogue is adapted from real experiences and focuses on romantic plots, implying that these years Xian Tianyi had incurred more romantic debts. Guan took a deep breath and then picked up the Green Hero travelogue with both hands. The moon outside the window was full, and the valley was filled with the continuous sound of insects, making the atmosphere more enjoyable for reading. It wasn't just him reading in the valley, Lu Xinyi was also in his guest room reading. Lu Xinyi held Journey to the West in one hand, his brow furrowed, and his other hand was calculating something. 7 days later. Guan rode the blood prison Great Saint to Qinya Valley to pick medicinal herbs. Only Luo Hun, Lv Xian, and 3 monkey demons were there. Iluyun Ji Ruolai, and Li Lingtian hadn't returned. Above the clouds, Lu Xinyi looked down at Qinya Valley, his brow tightly knit. Listening to the exchange between Guan and Luo Hun, he finally let down his guard. This youngster providing the supreme sect with grass and serving the dynasty as a laborer, with hardly a grand background, was exactly why he was so humble. Lu Xinyi turned and left, planning to visit the supreme sect. He had heard that investiture of the gods could be linked with Journey to the West, and he wanted to see what investiture of the gods was about. As Guan continued weeding, the corner of his mouth curled upward. Beside him, Luo Hun continued asking, "What have you considered?" "Let's not, I really don't want to leave the supreme sect. Thank the emperor and the crown prince for their kindness on my behalf, but I won't be going to the imperial city," Guan replied. Luo Hun smiled and said, "The crown prince always talks about defeating Yang Jian. He's been cultivating hard these years. He even received pointers from a great cultivator from the ocean. You better prepare Yang Jian." Guan nodded, "Sure, old Luo, you've aged." "Aged? Why would you say that?" "You've become more and more long-winded. You used to talk less when you borrowed the Green Hero Travelogue. You dare mention that, without a new volume of Green Hero Travelogue, the supreme secret records you asked me to find still haven't appeared. Read more of the Journey to the West and cultivate your mind." Guan kept weeding while bantering with Luo Hun. Days continued to pass. Autumn left and winter arrived. Snow began to fly. One day, while reading in the 8 scenic caves, Guan suddenly sensed something and immediately took out a green jade, the mortal jade of the mortal world peak, a symbol of a peak master and also a magic artifact. He sent his divine thought into it and soon learned that the Millennium Peak meeting was about to start. He thought for a moment, stood up, and disappeared from the spot. The mortal jade had a directional guide inside, but Guan didn't need it. He had already found the location of Mortal World Peak. Mortal World Peak was very distant from the Supreme Sect, situated over an ocean covered in thick fog. There were no islands or continents, only towering peaks rising straight from the ocean floor into the clouds. Guan appeared at the edge of Mortal World Peak and then proceeded forward through the clouds. It wasn't long before he saw the figures of cultivators, more and more of them all heading in the same direction. Guan didn't speed up, flying at a leisurely pace, enjoying the scenery along the way. He was considering, now as a peak master, whether to plant medicinal herbs on his own peak. Arriving at Mortal World Peak, he couldn't rely entirely on picking his own herbs, as that would be too suspicious. After all, here he was a heaven and earth flying immortal. "Taoist friend, please wait." A voice came from behind and Guan stopped and turned to look. He saw 2 cultivators approaching on swords, a man and a woman, both at the Nirvana realm. Guan performed a lifespan detection. The man was named Su Ruohai and the woman Su Shi. Their ultimate lifespans were not outstanding but also not mediocre. The 2 approached Guan and Su Ruohai took the initiative to raise his hand in greeting. "I am Su Ruohai, this is my sister, Su Shi. May I ask for your honored name, Taoist friend?" Guan returned the greeting. "I am Meng Lang. May I know what brings the 2 of you here?" Su Ruohai smiled. "Taoist friend, are you also here to pay respects at Mortal World Peak? We are siblings too, why don't we keep each other company?" Although he couldn't see through Guan's cultivation level, Guan didn't appear dangerous to him and he observed Guan flying leisurely, looking around as if it were his first visit. Su Shi, examining Guan, quickly averted her gaze when Guan looked at her, her earlobes turning slightly red. Interesting, embarrassed after living over 8,000 years? Guan thought to himself and then nodded. Su Ruohai became even more enthusiastic, and the 3 chatted as they flew. Guan asked them about their understanding of Mortal World Peak, reassuring Su Ruohai that it was indeed Guan's first visit. Su Shi didn't talk much, mostly Su Ruohai spoke, with her occasionally interjecting. Through them, Guan gained a clearer understanding of Mortal World Peak. At the same time he thought about the siblings he had met towards the end of Xiao Shengshen's life, recalling their adventures, which made him feel somewhat regretful and endearing Su Ruohai and Su Shi to him. An hour later. The 3 passed through dense fog and their eyes were drawn to a gigantic peak ahead, an incredibly majestic peak even larger than any they had encountered along the way. Its diameter at the base was at least 1,000 miles, shooting straight into the sky. its top invisible. The surface of this mountain was densely wooded, full of vitality, and cultivators from all directions were flying toward this mountain. Upon arriving here, the surroundings became noisy, with roars of demon pets and mounts in the distance. Su Ruohai looked up, feeling moved, truly worthy of Mortal World Peak, one of the oldest schools in the world. I've wanted to join Mortal World Peak since I was young. I wonder if it'll pass smoothly. Guan laughed. With your cultivation level, you should be fine, no need to worry. Su Ruohai laughed bitterly. Brother Meng, you don't understand the requirements of Mortal World Peak for aptitude. Ha ha ha, Dao's friend Meng, you finally arrived. A hearty laugh interrupted Su Ruohai. Guan knew without looking up that it was Baizia who had come. He had intentionally leaked a hint of heaven and earth flying immortal aura earlier. Su Ruohai and Su Shi might not have noticed, but Baizia, who had been waiting for him, picked it up quickly. Baizia descended from the sky, grabbing Guan's hand, eager to move on. If you hadn't come, your position as Peak Master would have been taken. Baizia huffed. Guan quickly said, I'd like to bring them along. Baizia glanced at Su Ruohai and Su Shi, nodding slightly. Su Ruohai and Su Shi were stunned. Peak Master's position? Had they heard right? Even without going to outer heaven, he could still advance. The two kept flying upwards until the azure sky vanished, replaced by the dazzling starry sky. Su Ruohai and Su Shi, standing in the palm of Guan's hand, looked up, immersed in the vastness of the universe. Guan followed Baizia into a grand hall, placing Su Ruohai and Su Shi on the ground, asking them to follow behind him. The grand hall was spacious, with giant, majestic statues lined up on both sides, and the ceiling was engraved with various grand scenes. Su Ruohai and Su Shi proceeded cautiously, not daring to make a sound, staying close behind Guan. Moving forward, Guan saw 25 bluish-purple crystal columns, with the power of rules surging within, containing countless restrictions. It seemed that Mortal World Peak might be hiding a divine immortal of wondrous dharma. Even a carefree primordial immortal would find it difficult to construct such crystal columns. Baizia stopped walking and pointed to two adjacent crystal columns. These two divine peaks are open for choice, known as Qingtian Peak and Dingtian Peak. He began to introduce Qingtian Peak and Dingtian Peak. Qingtian Peak had over 1 million disciples, and its height was moderate since it had a long history, so the disciples' cultivation levels were generally strong. The height of Dingtian Peak was second among the divine peaks. Because it had experienced internal strife, there was a gap in the disciples' cultivation, with most of them below the level of loose immortals, and resources were also scarce, with many areas left idle. Currently, the number of disciples on Dingtian Peak was just over 200,000. Guan immediately spoke up, then Dingtian Peak it shall be, I will see to its improvement and contribute to Mortal World Peak. Upon hearing this, Baizia looked at Guan with newfound respect. Afterward, Baizia asked Guan to bring out the mortal jade and place it on the crystal column. Having done all this, they proceeded to other palaces for a tedious process to unlock Guan's rights on Dingtian Peak. Su Ruohai and Su Shi also registered in the process, becoming disciples of Dingtian Peak. An hour later, Baizia took Guan and the siblings to Dingtian Peak, then left. He didn't support Guan's position. Jokingly, did a heaven and earth flying immortal even need someone to stand up for them? Who would dare to stir up trouble? That would be courting death. In Mortal World Peak, disciples were not allowed to defile the Peak Master. Su Ruohai and Su Shi looked with excitement at the majestic Dingtian Peak. Guan looked at them and asked with a smile, From now on, how should you address me? Su Ruohai quickly bowed and offered his respects. This disciple, Su Ruohai, greets Master. Su Shi recovered her senses and followed suit, greeting him as Master. Guan smiled, then revealed the aura of the heaven and earth flying immortal, enveloping Dingtian Peak. Neither Lu Lingjun nor the White Spirit Demon Emperor had reached the Mahayana realm, yet the cultivators and demons they encountered along the way were much stronger than them, causing an instinctive feeling of nervousness and discomfort. But they were ascenders, certainly not cowards. Ambition grew within them. One day they too would arrive invited rather than relying on others. Lu Lingjun couldn't help but think of Guan. The young man who had written the Immortal God Book, if he could see this spectacle, would certainly be inspired even more. Too bad, with Guan's talent and temperament, he probably would never reach such a place in his lifetime. Chapter 309, The Invincible Heavenly Demon Great Emperor. At the summit of Mortal World Peak, in a courtyard at the mountain's top, Guan gathered with a group of heaven and earth flying immortals. Everyone present was either a peak master or main peak elder of Mortal World Peak. The courtyard was simple and not very expansive, filled with various flowers and trees, and the faint scent of sandalwood lingered in the air. Guan was exchanging pleasantries with everyone. No matter how high one's realm might be, social interaction is inevitable. Guan did not resist it. After all, he intended to stay at Mortal World Peak for the long term. This place was destined to become an important source of lifespan for him. Overall, the atmosphere was harmonious, with no apparent scheming or rivalry in sight. The master of the main peak, just as Guan had guessed, was none other than a carefree primordial immortal, and not of a low realm at that. Eternal Taoist Lord, carefree primordial immortal level 6267907/78000/1500000. A maximum lifespan of 1,500,000 years. Exceeding Shin Zinzis 999,999 years suggested reaching the carefree primordial immortal realm heralded a transformation in the limit of one's lifespan. With just level 6 of carefree immortal achieving 780,000 years of lifespan, the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma must certainly surpass 1,000,000 years, and the higher Tao void mysterious immortals would have lifespans of several million years or even more. Guan was unable to even estimate how long the divine thought true immortals had lived. They were ancient beings to him. Compared with them, Guan was like an infant. After rotating through interactions with each person, Guan became a listener. The Millennial Peak meeting would host a banquet to exchange insights with the higher echelons of various sects and also conduct peak combat competitions. The first aim was to promote healthy internal competition, and the second was to demonstrate Mortal World Peak strength to the world. As for recruiting disciples, that was just a side matter. With Mortal World Peak's current foundations, they hardly cared about the number of new disciples. After a while, the high-level meeting of Mortal World Peak adjourned, and Guan flew off alone toward Dingtian Peak. He spread his divine thought and already caught sight of Lu Lingjun and Shen Xinzi. Shen Xinzi was not a concern, for with his 9th layer wandering immortal realm cultivation, he was treated well wherever he went. However, Lu Lingjun, who was only at the Mystic Heart realm, couldn't enjoy the same treatment. Without the Holy Mother of Western Spirit accompanying her, Lu Lingjun had to stay inside her temporary residence. She was living atop a mountain peak with a broad view. Many cultivators and demons who passed by cast surprised glances at her, which made the color of her cheeks unpleasant. Guan glanced at the situation briefly before taking his gaze back, not taking much interest in it. Upon returning to Dingtian Peak, Guan wandered around leisurely as no disciples recognized him along the way. There were many winding mountain paths on Dingtian Peak. Along the way he saw courtyards of disciples, some growing flowers and plants, some with empty yards and others raising demon beasts and insects, providing an entertaining stroll for him. Dingtian Peak had several mountain cities, akin to the fortresses of the Supreme Sect, where nearly anything one wished for could be purchased, except that these cities weren't as crowded as those of the Supreme Sect. As Guan passed by a mountain city, a voice reached him, its tone filled with surprise. "Master." Guan turned his head to see Sushi approaching briskly. Upon seeing Guan, her ears reddened and she shyly lowered her head, reminding Guan of an Exan. But an Exan was not shy, she was gentle. Guan smiled and asked, "Where's your brother? Why are you here alone?" Sushi, still keeping her head down and holding her sleeves, softly answered, "He went to Debating Peak. He wants to see if he can meet any acquaintances or clansmen." Debating Peak was specially prepared for receiving Mortal World Peak's guests, and the current Millennial Peak meeting had brought the quiet Debating Peak to life. Guan, seeing her in this state, smiled broader. He then took out a secret book and handed it to Sushi, saying, "Meeting is destiny, consider this spell book a welcome gift. You may pass it on to Su Ruohai as well." Sushi looked up, instinctively stepping back and waved her hand saying, "If not for Master, we might not have been able to join Mortal World Peak. How can we accept another spell book? We will train diligently and earn spell books with our efforts." Guan gave her a stern look and said, "Then what kind of master am I? Take it." Sushi had no choice but to accept. Seeing her at a loss, Guan then chuckled and said, "If you feel bad, how about doing me a favor? Have you been busy lately?" Sushi quickly shook her head, replying, not busy at all. Go to Debating Peak, to the dwelling of the Bitter Sea Buddhist sect. Look for a person named Lu Lingjun. Keep her company wherever she wants to go these days. If she asks, just say it's arranged by your master. Do not reveal my name. If she has any request that you can fulfill, help her out. Your master won't let you suffer for it, Guan instructed, then raised his hand to project the image of Lu Lingjun into Su Zai's mind. Su Shi hesitated for a moment before accepting the task. With a wave from Guan, she bowed respectfully and took her leave. Watching Su Shi leave, Guan smiled to himself. Arranging this was partly to help Lu Lingjun broaden her horizons, and also to train Su Shi a bit. This had been a spur-of-the-moment decision for him. Guan continued his descent down the mountain, enjoying the scenery along the way. In the courtyard, Lu Lingjun sat in front of a stone table, idly flipping through a book. Beside her, the white spirit demon emperor lay sprawled across the table. A figure descended from the sky, and Lu Lingjun instinctively looked up, then rose to her feet. Lu Lingjun? Su Shi asked. Lu Lingjun subconsciously nodded, feeling somewhat uneasy. Su Shi was wearing the Taoist robe of mortal world peak, her face beautiful, her posture dignified, and exuding an aura of immortality. In her presence, Lu Lingjun couldn't help but feel intimidated. The difference between them was like that between immortals and mortals. Although Su Shi was shy in front of Guan, she was at ease facing Lu Lingjun. Precisely because of this serenity, the aura of Nirvana realm manifested, overwhelming Lu Lingjun of the mystic realm with pressure. Lu Lingjun's mind raced, wondering if she had offended someone. My master sent me to you. Do you have any places you'd like to go? I can accompany you. If you have any needs, you can ask me until the end of the Millennial Peak meeting, Su Shi continued. She was puzzled inwardly about why her master would take care of such a minor cultivator. She then thought, weren't she and her brother similar to this girl in her master's eyes? Perhaps this girl had also met her master on the road and caught his eye. May I ask who is the master of Senior? Lu Lingjun asked cautiously. Su Shi responded, my master is the Peak Master of Dingtian Peak. The Peak Master of Dingtian Peak. As an ascender, Lu Lingjun couldn't keep her composure at this revelation, and the white spirit demon emperor's eyes widened as well. Having been told by the Holy Mother of Western Spirit that the Peak Masters of Mortal World Peak were extraordinary beings, especially those of divine peaks, of which Dingtian Peak was one, Lu Lingjun couldn't fathom how such an exalted being would know of her. For a moment, Lu Lingjun felt nervous and unsettled. At dusk, Guan returned to Third Medicine Valley. Ji Xiaoyu came to greet him, curiously asking, where have you been these past 2 days? Guan replied, a Taoist friend of mine is hosting a banquet, and I have to attend as a guest. Ji Xiaoyu nodded, then said, I had another dream while cultivating today. Shall we talk about it? I don't want to get involved with your great karma. Guan thought helplessly, but he immediately said aloud, of course, no problem. They both ascended to the upper floor. After Ji Xiaoyu set up restrictions, only then did she sit down at the desk, frowning slightly as she said, I dreamed that I was in a dimly lit space surrounded by stars, some of them immensely vast. I was surrounded by many demons and fighting, outer heaven? Having never been to outer heaven, the mortal spirits of this world couldn't imagine what it looked like, so Ji Xiaoyu could only describe it as a dimly lit space. Listening attentively, Guan quickly determined that Ji Xiaoyu's dream involved heavenly demons. Had she been to the silent destruction domain in a past life? He wasn't surprised. He had known for a long time that Ji Xiaoyu was no ordinary person. What puzzled him was not only that Ji Xiaoyu's previous lifetimes had battled with the heavenly demon army, but she also mentioned a terrifying being. This being commanded the heavenly demons. He said that no matter how many times I reincarnate, he would be waiting for me to challenge him. Ji Xiaoyu took a deep breath and said, the memory of the fierce battles in her dreams causing her to grip the teacup in her hands tightly. After a moment of thought, Guan comforted her. Don't worry, you won't be able to challenge him for many years, maybe not even in this lifetime. Anyway, I can't imagine how to slash a star so large with a single sword stroke. Although his words were a bit harsh, they indeed comforted Ji Xiaoyu. Just then, a voice came, that is the heavenly demon emperor, who once single-handedly suppressed the great heavenly spirit land. The voice of stealing the 5 elements. As he spoke, he appeared out of nowhere inside the room. Ji Xiaoyu frowned but did not speak out. The identity of Reincarnation Path Emperor was revealed to them by stealing the 5 elements, so Guan did not stop him from entering. Suppress the great heavenly spirit land? How strong must that be? Guan cautiously asked. With a grave expression, stealing the 5 elements replied, very strong, unimaginably so. Even the Reincarnation Path Emperor once mentioned to me that her destiny was to challenge the Heavenly Demon Emperor, but she soon reincarnated, and her fate entered the cycle of reincarnation. Guan pressed on, you mean the Heavenly Demon Emperor won't attack our realm actively? Correct, the establishment of the Holy Court has kept the Heavenly Demon's ravages at bay. As long as the Tao level of Xingtian remains intact, there's no way for the Heavenly Demon Emperor to reach us. The being behind me has also been to the land of the Heavenly Demons and was cursed as a result. It's a place of utter horror beyond my comprehension. However, seeing her growth rate in this life, it will be hard to encounter Heavenly Demons without 30,000 years, said Stealing the Five Elements, casting a glance at Ji Xiaoyu. Guan did not speak further but adopted a shocked expression. It was entirely normal for a mortal to be shocked upon hearing of the existence of Heavenly Demons, or so Stealing the Five Elements thought Guan should seem. After hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu returned to calm. Stealing the Five Elements continued to describe the might of the Heavenly Demons. A good while later he left. The room fell silent. Other carefree primordial immortals followed with light jabs at Mo Hen. Mentioning the Great Cold Demon sect invariably brought up Sword Venerable Fudao, but Mo Hen wasn't upset. He looked at Everlasting Taoist Lord and cheerfully said, I've long severed those ties. It's normal for that group of useless people to be annihilated. Don't provoke me, Sword Venerable Fudao isn't someone I can afford to antagonize. I advise you all to speak well and avoid substantial karmic retribution. Hearing this, other carefree primordial immortals stopped making fun of him. Even they did so, not to mention the heaven and earth flying immortals. Though all were present at the banquet, the division of hierarchy was clear, and heaven and earth flying immortals were definitely not the protagonists. Everlasting Taoist Lord pondered and said, the position of the Peak Master of Qingtian Peak is still vacant. Would you accept that? Mo Hen shook his head and said, I set my sights on Dingtian Peak. He then turned and looked towards Guan in the crowd, smiling, Dingtian Peak's Peak Master, how about you cede your position to me? All eyes were now on Guan. Before Guan could speak, Baizia angrily said, what do you mean by this? Bullying the weak? Guan looked at Baizia, not expecting him to be so aggressive. He's got quite the backing. Mo Hen wasn't upset and chuckled, there was internal strife on Dingtian Peak back then, and a good friend of mine died there, him just being nostalgic. Yet his tone obviously left no room for negotiation. Suddenly the banquet fell silent. Baizia looked towards Everlasting Taoist Lord. Carefree primordial immortals seemed amused by the situation, while the heaven and earth flying immortals looked at Guan sympathetically. They all knew Guan had just become the Peak Master of Dingtian Peak, and now, just days later, he was being asked to vacate his position, which must be hard to accept. Guan remained silent while everyone thought he was weighing his options. In reality he was feeling sentimental. My ties with the Great Cold Demon sect are truly cursed. Is this to continue the karma? To make me completely annihilate the Great Cold Demon sect? Guan felt no pressure, being the strongest person present with a cultivation level 2 major realms higher than anyone else. What was there to fear? He wanted to see the attitude of Everlasting Taoist Lord. If Everlasting Taoist Lord didn't defend him, then there was no reason to stay in Mortal World Peak. As for Mo Hen, a bad ending was inevitable. Everlasting Taoist Lord slowly said, that won't do, choose another one. His tone was unquestionable and very firm, giving the great cultivators of Mortal World Peak a sense of backbone. Regardless, Mo Hen was an outsider, and although the combat power of a carefree primordial immortal was important, it didn't give him the right to do whatever he pleased. If Meng Lang were kicked out today, tomorrow it could be any of them. Though the gesture was gentle to everyone watching, this was the making of a deadly feud. Chapter 311. A million years is far from enough. After Guan slapped him, Mo Hen's face showed disbelief. He had not expected Guan to be so audacious. Despite the gap in their cultivation levels, they both existed as carefree primordial immortals. Mo Hen clenched his teeth and asked, who exactly are you and from which sect do you come? Everyone else stared at Guan, waiting for his response. A heaven and earth flying immortal who had just joined Mortal World Peak was a carefree primordial immortal? Everyone felt it was absurd and even suspected Guan had ulterior motives. At this moment, Baizia could not help but entertain doubts, but upon rethinking, he recalled that it was he who had persuaded the individual to join Mortal World Peak, and it did not seem like a setup at that time. Guan fixed his gaze on Imohen and said, "Does that really matter? If I were merely an ordinary peak master of Mortal World Peak, how would you seek revenge on me?" As soon as Imohen exhibited hostility toward him, Guan had already marked him as a dead man in his heart. Guan's statement made Taoist Lord Yongyan narrow his eyes. After hearing this, Imohen's expression grew uglier, and for a moment he did not know how to respond. Could he also be aiming for Dingtian Peak? Imohen thought angrily in his heart, not considering it a coincidence. How could it be that a randomly chosen person turned out to be a great cultivator concealing his power? Now he found himself in a dilemma. Bowing his head in submission would not erase the karma, but refusing to do so would only worsen his situation. Suddenly Imohen revealed a smile and said with a clasped fist, "If that's the case, I am even more convinced to join Mortal World Peak. As for Dingtian Peak, I no longer want it. Qingtian Peak is also fine." Upon hearing these words, most of the people present heaved a sigh of relief. Taoist Lord Yongyan spoke, "Forget it, Taoist friend, please go to another sect." Everyone was taken aback by his rapid change in attitude, and Imohen's face turned even uglier. Guan turned around to look at Taoist Lord Yongyan, saw him slightly nodding and he couldn't help but smile. "Very sensible, ha. Umph." Imohen let out a cold snort and left with a flick of his sleeves. Everyone urged him to stop, fearing he would stay and escalate the conflict. Guan raised his right hand, causing everyone to look at him, not understanding what he intended to do. 3 breaths later, Guan suddenly clenched his hand, then quickly put whatever it was into his sleeve, the movement so swift that no one saw what he had in his hand. "You have successfully seized 8,709 years of lifespan from Imohen, Carefree Primordial Immortal Realm, 4th layer." Looking at the prompt before him, Guan remained indifferent, feeling no sense of accomplishment. Lu Lingjun began from where she first learned about the Wanli Peak meeting, and Guan sat down to listen attentively. She didn't hide the Dingtian Peak master's protectiveness toward her, even her language seemed to steer, seemingly eager to see Guan's reaction. Guan kept a normal expression, silently criticizing in his mind. Are all women like this? Previously, Jianghu also used sword Venerable Fudao to pressure him. After some time, Lu Lingjun remarked reflectively, "The strength of the Dingtian Peak master is unimaginable. The elder from the Great Cold Demon sect was killed just like that. I wonder when I could reach such a realm." Guan joked, "Practice cultivation for 180,000 years. Lu Lingjun glared at him and retorted, "Easy for you to say? 1,000,000 years might not be enough. You have no idea about the vastness of the Immortal Path realm." Chapter 312. The shock of Hu Shaojian appreciation flickered in Guan's eyes. He hadn't expected Lu Lingjun to have such a keen self-awareness. Lu Lingjun, seeing Guan's expression, felt rather helpless. Was this guy always so calm? She glared at Guan and said unenthusiastically, "Don't you long for it after hearing all that?" Guan replied, "Of course I yearn for it, but over the years I've heard too many tales of immortals. At best, I take them as entertainment. Could a great man like myself even dream of such things?" Lu Lingjun felt his words were somewhat odd, but she was too lazy to argue and continued to talk about her observations from Mortal World Peak. Although Guan had been there at the time, hearing it from Lu Lingjun's perspective offered a different view of the scene. The two chatted for over an ancient hour, and Lu Lingjun expressed her desire to stay temporarily in the Third Medicine Valley, to which Guan agreed. Guan stretched in a languid manner as he looked out the window. Tomorrow he could go to Dingtian Peak to pick medicinal herbs. He had ordered Zhu Xinglan to establish a medicine garden, and the first batch of medicinal herbs was already ripe. Regarding the medicine garden on Dingtian Peak, Guan had no intention of prohibiting other disciples from picking the herbs so as not to arouse suspicion. After all, Mortal World Peak was now a first-class sect with close ties to the Holy Court, and he had to be careful. And after all, Dingtian Peak was vast. Even with disciples helping, he could collect many herbs himself. Thinking of this, a look of anticipation appeared in Guan's eyes. The following afternoon, on Dingtian Peak, Guan walked up the mountain path to the summit, followed by Zhu Xinglan, who displayed great respect as the peak's foremost disciple. He now knew that Guan was a great power who surpassed the carefree primordial immortal. Such a major figure was critical to cling to, and so he was eager to assist in any way possible. "I need a wandering immortal disciple to take charge of an island for me," Guan said casually. "Ask around for me. I won't treat him unfairly." Today had brought him over 300,000 years of lifespan, a decent haul. Zhu Xinglan immediately responded, "Master, if you wish to leave today, I will arrange it now." "Go ahead." With Guan's consent, Zhu Xinglan vanished on the spot. Guan walked to the courtyard and sat on a bench looking up. Ever since his last breakthrough, cosmic wars had erupted from time to time outside, with increasing numbers of heaven and earth flying immortals coming and going. Guan also caught sight of the visage of a heavenly demon. The heavenly demons appeared no different from living beings, and included many of the human race. The most distinct feature of the heavenly demons was their demonic qi, which was different from that of the demon cultivators and demons within the great heavenly spirit land. It was more sinister and instinctively repelling. At the periphery of the silent destruction domain, two heaven and earth flying immortals were engaged in combat, fighting over a treasure. Carefree primordial immortals were observing in the shadows. Half an incense stick of time later, Zhu Xinglan returned, bringing someone with him. Sun Hanfeng, Wandering Immortal Realm, 4th Layer 89034/140000/280000. Guan sized up Sun Hanfeng, who wore a black robe with a slightly sinister face, unkempt hair, and an aura that gave off an impression of great scheming. Feeling Guan's gaze, Sun Hanfeng lowered his head, not daring to make eye contact. He was nervous because he had heard how powerful and domineering this new master was, but he didn't want to miss such an opportunity. "Disciple Sun Hanfeng greets master," Sun Hanfeng said respectfully with a bow. Zhu Xinglan followed with an introduction of his background. Sun Hanfeng had been born on Mortal World Peak and had a very good relationship with Zhu Xinglan. "Let's be off then." Guan stood up and, with a sweep of his sleeve, whisked Sun Hanfeng away. Zhu Xinglan was momentarily stunned, admiring how impressive the master's divine skills were. Many privately discussed just how powerful the master of Dingtian Peak really was. Zhu Xinglan received an important piece of information. Sect leader Yongyin Daojun believed that the master of Dingtian Peak possessed a higher cultivation level than he did. Such an assessment left him with boundless imagination. Elsewhere, Guan arrived at Immortal Seeking Island with Sun Hanfeng in tow. As they alighted, Sun Hanfeng stumbled, nearly falling, but Guan caught his arm in time. "Are you all right?" Guan asked. Sun Hanfeng, his face flushed with embarrassment, quickly replied, "I'm fine, master. Sorry for the laugh." Guan nodded and began walking towards the buildings ahead, with Sun Hanfeng hastily following. Guan started to brief him on Immortal Seeking Island. After understanding the strength of the island, Sun Hanfeng breathed a sigh of relief. A place where a wandering immortal alone could be a deterrent? What pressure could there possibly be? "You and the island both share the Sun surname. That's quite a coincidence," Guan joked, with Sun Hanfeng offering only an embarrassed smile and not the least bit of dissatisfaction. Soon, Hu Xiaojin and several elders of the Sea Protection Mansion were introduced, and Guan had Sun Hanfeng introduce himself. "From Mortal World Peak, I am Sun Hanfeng. I look forward to working with all of you and hope for your fullest support," Sun Hanfeng said, and then exhibited the aura of a wandering immortal, which caused everyone in the hall to breathe rapidly. He was curious to see how long he could survive. Perhaps if he lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years and mastered formidable divine skills, it might increase his chances of surviving the next tribulation crossing. Moreover, the memories passed down from reincarnation evolution could benefit his Taoist heart cultivation. Guan felt reaching a certain level might require reincarnation cultivation. Otherwise he wouldn't have unlocked this feature. "Let's give it a shot then. Just one shot, no greediness." After all, it would cost 10 million years of lifespan, and even if he wanted to play more, it was not possible. Guan looked at Yilan, thinking to himself, "Little sister, please." At the age of 18 you decided to venture into the world to grow stronger. You left with Han Jiaoer's reluctant farewell, and in the same year she gave birth to your son, named Long Xin. At the age of 20, You reached the edge of the divine continent and saw an evil dragon ravaging the city. You stepped in, subdued it, and unexpectedly discovered you could absorb dragon blood, making your chi blood even stronger. At the age of 21, you encountered an old Taoist who wanted to read your fate. Do you accept? It stopped again, suggesting the old Taoist was no ordinary person. Guan hesitated for a moment and chose to accept. You agreed to let the old Taoist read your fate. He pinched your muscles and bones and began to calculate. He was soon shocked, proclaiming you possess an innate divine emperor fate, destined to dominate all creatures of heaven and earth, becoming the lord of great heaven and earth. Immediately afterward, the old Taoist exploded into a burst of blood, covering you. At 25, you accidentally entered the grotto heaven of an ancient great cultivator and learned the ancient strange skill, divine desolation technique. Guan's lips twitched when he saw the part about the old Taoist's explosive demise. After that, he picked the more cautious options whenever possible. Year after year passed. Guan was on tenterhooks, fearing an early death. When he made it past 200 years, he smiled, finally setting a new record. However, without the life-stealing ability, Longzhan's growth was surely not as fast as Chu Lu Shaoxing Tian, and without a displayed realm in the prompts. Take it slow. Guan then became even more earnest, determined to strive to survive this life. As time ticked by, Yilan was meditating on the bed while Guan sat at the desk, the room engulfed in silence. Birdsong occasionally rang out from outside the window, adding a serene atmosphere of passing years. After an ancient hour, Guan let out a sigh, his expression grave, mired in struggle. At the age of 187,632, you met with the dragon family ancestor who said he could fully awaken your bloodline, allowing it to fuse with your chi fortune and create an unprecedented physique. Do you accept his help? Guan had achieved the status of war god of the divine continent and was now venturing through the cosmos when he encountered the ancestor. He always felt the ancestor was up to no good. He did not want to die after coming this far. If the ancestor was benevolent, he wouldn't make things difficult for a descendant who refused him. If malevolent, not trusting him might lead to disaster, but trusting him could lead to plummeting into the abyss. Do not accept. You refused the help of the dragon family ancestor. The ancestor was enraged and attacked you, intending to suppress you. After a great battle, you escaped with severe injuries. At the age of 187,633, you met with Fairy Ziyuan, who fortunately saved you. Chapter 314, Heavenly Dragon and the Ji family. As Guan continued to assimilate Longzhan's memories, his hostility towards the Annihilation God Emperor also began to weaken. This Longzhan is too arrogant. Before his wife Han Jiaoer's death, he still exercised some restraint in his actions, but since he went to outer heaven he completely unleashed himself and acted recklessly. The battle court he established was also tyrannical, rewarding those who followed him and annihilating those who opposed. The peace of heaven and earth sacrificed by Longzhan was completely innocent and involved, and the creatures of that realm didn't even have time to react before they died. The whole world turned to dust in an instant. Before, Guan felt that Shaoxing Tian was already arrogant enough, but compared to Longzhan he was nothing. If Guan had been in the great heavenly spirit land and also possessed the ability to slay Longzhan, he would definitely have made a move. After Guan finished integrating the memories, it was as if he had lived through Longzhan's life himself, becoming the Emperor of Heavenly Dragon. Yet when he looked back he was filled with regret and remorse. Before Longzhan transcended the 9 heavens of Immortal path, Fairy Ziyuan had advised him not to pursue enlightenment at the expense of harming other beings. Longzhan didn't listen and the two even broke ties over this. After the inheritance of memories ended, Guan was still immersed in them. He was Guan but also Longzhan. This feeling left Guan with an indescribable sense. Perhaps this is what it felt like to remember a past life in one's current life. Clearly the same person but with different personalities. After inheriting the memories of Longzhan's life, Guan also gained a lot, including insights into the Taoist heart and the ability to inherit Longzhan's most powerful divine skills. Heavenly Dragon Reincarnation Dharma Aspect. This divine skill could condense the ultimate Dharma aspect of one's Taoist sorcery, and could even condense the Dharma aspect of a past life to fight alongside oneself. After creating this divine skill, Longzhan had intended to cultivate through reincarnation evolution to create Dharma aspects for tens of thousands of generations, but an accident unlocked the life-stealing ability, and he no longer researched this divine skill. instead continually using lifespan evolution to enhance his divine skill. Guan slowly opened his eyes and then disappeared inside the island retreat, returning to Yilan's estate. At this moment, Yilan was still in a state of path enlightenment. Guan sat down and continued to reflect on Longzhan's life. The Longzhan who had transcended the 9 heavens of immortal path was truly powerful. The feeling of controlling life and casually manipulating rules fascinated Guan even now. Ji Xiaoyu dismissed the heavenly dragon demon suppressing form, then approached Guan and asked, "How was it?" Although she wasn't sure why Guan wanted to see the heavenly dragon demon suppressing form, it was renowned throughout the world, and showing it to outsiders did not violate clan rules. Truly formidable, it fills me with awe. The person who created this divine skill must truly be a godly being. Does the Ji family have a record of who created it? Guan exclaimed. Ji Xiaoyu thought for a moment and said, "This divine skill has an ancient origin, created by an ancestor. Who exactly created it I am unsure, but if you care I can look into it when I return." Guan nodded. "I'm indeed curious. I want to write a book inspired by the Ji family's history." Upon hearing this, Ji Xiaoyu smiled and said, "The vice sect leader is looking forward to you writing about the Ji family." The two continued their conversation, with Ji Xiaoyu planning to introduce other divine skills, but Guan showed no interest, so she gave up. Both of them headed towards Medicine Valley. The heavenly dragon demon suppressing form was created by the Reincarnation Path Emperor, or perhaps I have seen her perform it. A voice came from the forest ahead, and stealing the 5 elements appeared. Ji Xiaoyu frowned, her expression full of displeasure. Guan had already noticed stealing the 5 elements eavesdropping, and he too was speculating whether it was related to the Reincarnation Path Emperor, so he didn't mind stealing the 5 elements' presence. Currently, only the Reincarnation Path Emperor in the Ji family could travel to outer heaven. Stealing the 5 elements, seeing the look in Ji Xiaoyu's eyes, laughed and said, "She once said that at the other end of the universe, there exists a more vast expanse of heaven and earth that I can't even fathom." After hearing this, Guan suddenly suspected that the dragon race or the battle court might still exist. Of course it was just a guess. Although he integrated Longzhan's memories and became Longzhan, he had no intention of seeking out the dragon race or the battle court. Staying honestly in the great heavenly spirit land was the righteous path. Even the strong could be crushed by others. "Why do you always eavesdrop on our conversation?" Ji Xiaoyu said discontentedly, the Tao patterns on her forehead emitting strange radiance once again. Stealing the 5 elements raised his hand. "I mean no harm. Am I not helping you clear up your doubts? If you could transform into the Reincarnation Path Emperor, I would only be pleased." With that, he vanished on the spot. Guan consoled, "Don't worry about him, watch how I'll crush him on the chessboard in the future." Ji Xiaoyu retracted her Tao patterns and nodded slightly. For Guan, this was just a minor interlude, understanding was enough. He didn't need to investigate thoroughly. Longzhan's karma was too significant. He didn't want to get involved. Chapter 316, Mysterious Heavenly Demon, you think you're Sword Venerable Fudao? The sect can't go on without you? Ji Xiaoyu couldn't help but say her angry glare was actually quite charming. Guan thought as much but said, "Making contributions, does it really have to be divided by cultivation levels? Guarding the sect outside is merit, as is guarding Medicine Valley. I cultivate medicinal herbs for the supreme sect with all my might. Isn't that also a laborious and meritorious deed?" Ji Xiaoyu tried to calm her emotions and began to speak of the great advantage of that opportunity. Despite Ji Xiaoyu's persuasion, Guan just wouldn't agree, which infuriated her. Another person was just as infuriated, and that was Hao. No matter how he persuaded, an Xian simply refused to follow him to the Star Sea congregations. That day Ji Xiaoyu left the Third Medicine Valley. Less than an hour after her departure, Hao also stormed off, though he was not leaving the supreme sect. He still needed to return to the main city of sect to have a talk with the higher-ups. Dusk descended. Guan and an Xian stood in front of the wooden railings, their shadows elongating with the setting sun. Guan, admiring the desolate beauty of the sunset, softly asked, "Don't you regret it?" An Xan turned her head, looked at Guan's profile and asked, "Master, do you have any regrets?" "Ha, we're different. Ji Xiaoyu has the Ji family behind her, but and how only has you?" Guan shook his head with a bitter smile. An Xan looked to the horizon and said, "He has more than just me, and his heart holds the entire mortal world. He's long since not the senior brother I knew. I can't be the stumbling block in his path." For some reason, Guan suddenly felt the impulse to focus on cultivating an Xian. It would be interesting to have an Xian surpass and how. Unfortunately, for now he could only contemplate it, as reversing the gap between the two was not so easy. The master and disciple began to discuss matters overseas, imagining how powerful the Star Sea congregations were and how awe-inspiring the sea-breaking rift would be. In life, one always wishes to see the whole world, to measure mountains and rivers. Above the sea of clouds, Blood Prison Great Saint carried Guan as they flew, feeling the vibrant spiritual energy of the region, and couldn't help but take a deep breath. "Master, where exactly is this place?" Blood Prison Great Saint couldn't resist asking. Guan replied, "Another sect I've joined. You must not reveal this to anyone, including Jenner." Upon hearing this, Blood Prison Great Saint's body shivered, feeling a surge of excitement rush to the top of his skull, unable to contain his exhilaration. A secret only he knew? Perfect. Didn't this mean he had surpassed Yang Jian in the heart of his master? Serves that kid right for wanting to go out and make a name for himself.